It's a finding of the City of Gloucester that no individual.
All right, I just unmuted. That's my error. I'm sorry. I just didn't unmute, so they couldn't hear you in the audience, so you might have to start the whole thing again.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. For those of you who are here, I have to repeat myself because Zoom was muted. I'd like to welcome everyone to the. Are we good, Counselor? Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 24th, 2023 City Council meeting. In the interest of government transparency with regards to deliberations and decisions made by the City Council and according to open meeting law, for the convenience of the public, this meeting is recorded by video and audio, and a Zoom link was posted on the agenda. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or a device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. Roll call votes will only be necessary if a specific matter requires one or a member of the council participates remotely. Our non-discrimination statement opener for City Council meetings is as follows. It's a finding in the City of Gloucester that no individual should be denied equal treatment or opportunity because of their age, ancestry, color, disability, including intellectual and developmental mental capacity, disability, family status, immigration status, gender identity or expression, military status, marital status, national origin, race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. I'd like to begin by announcing the names of the city councilors that are here. Council Memard, if you would start, would you introduce yourself?
Jeff Worthley at large.
Tracy O'Neill, Ward 2.
Jason Grow at large.
Sean Nolan, Ward 5.
Al Gilman, Ward 4.
Jamie O'Hara at large.
Frank Majota, Ward 3.
Tony Gross at large.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce members of city staff that are here. We have Suzanne Egan, who's our general counsel. We have John Dunn, who is our CFO. We have David Fields, who is our community development director. We've got Kenny Coster, who is our auditor. And Nancy Pappas is here. And Tim Good is here. So thank you for being here tonight. First order of business, Madam Clerk.
Flag salute and moment of silence.
I'd like to ask Tony Gross if you would lead the salute and the moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. One nation. Justice for all.
Thank you, Council. First order of business, Madam Clerk.
First order of business is oral communications.
Public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within a 2-week period relative to the disposition of same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the city council. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each. And Tony Gross is going to do the timing tonight. If you could remind people at 2 minutes and 50 seconds to say wrap up or whatever you want to say. If you want to just let the buzzer go off, that would be great. So thank you. Suzanne, you're first. And for those who are on our Zoom, you will be up for oral communications after everyone here at Kairos has an opportunity to speak. So we'll watch for your hands very shortly. So Suzanne Altenburg.
Susanna Altenburger, 66 Atlantic Street. We design boats. We've been looking at the harbor for decades. And as many of you already know, in 2002 rather, time flies, we noticed something really wrong with the fleet. From a design perspective, we recognized what it was, and we've been watching things ever since. Federal code has frozen the fleet in time, and so we've been watching how our city professionals and how outside harbor planning professionals are dealing with the matter. And as you've had for several weeks now, this 56-page report in dealing with 10 different plans, 2 on statewide fisheries and seafood, 1 for New Bedford, second opinion, and 7 for Gloucester. In none of these harbor or seafood or industry recovery plans do we find any reference to the federal code of March 1st, 1994, that has frozen our fleet in time as of the best and worst thinking of the early 1990s. There's no industry anywhere in this country that you can freeze in time for 30 years that will do well. There's plenty of folks with small business background on this council who know what I'm talking about. So you've had a good amount of time. I hope you folks have been doing your homework. I'm not going to administer a harsh pop quiz, certainly not tonight. But this is all based on work we did here in late January, early February of 2020. And you folks have had this report since February 16th of 2020. That's 3 years and 8 months ago. And I've been asking to give a presentation on this subject matter. It's the most important issue in our town, far bigger than anything else, including the MBTA overlay stuff. And so far, this council has not yet heard this. It's remarkable. 3 years and 8 months. Good thing is that the White House is on my side. The Ocean Climate Action Plan at whitehouse.gov, OCAP, passed in March of 2023, they explicitly emphasized the need for a climate-sensitive, low least carbon, sustainable fishing fleet, and thus a matching port economy. And so I keep insisting this port here at our 400 should be the first one to get going on this in earnest. So I urge the council president, at long last, break the spell of 3 years and 8 months for us to finally talk about this in earnest. This would require a long form format. 3 minutes simply don't cover this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in public comments? The matter is not on the agenda. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Lyanne Palazzola, and I live at 44 Middle Street. I want to talk about the, I know it's not with you guys just yet, but the proposal on 20 Main Street to have the 20 units built. I live across the street from the abutters, but I have a problem with the traffic. I only have 2 ways to get to my home, School Street or Main Street. And if I use Main Street, I go up Center Street because going to Short Street, there's always a traffic jam, especially when the delivery trucks come to the stores and the restaurants and have to deliver. I think from the Brass Monkeys to Tono's Restaurant is always a challenge to get to Tally's Corner. But now you want to add 20 plus more cars in the area, not to mention what's already going on Main Street, the Cut Building on Main Street, the Passport Hotel on Main Street, the Bank Hotel on Main Street, the new YMCA on Middle Street, which is all going to introduce all new traffic to the area. I think you've done enough putting approvals and shoving this down downtown's throats. I think it's time to give downtown residents a break. Maybe if you didn't approve the hotels or the cut and convince the developers to make affordable housing for the city, that would have been great, instead of just approving all this traffic, which is not really going to help the city. I wish someone would have thought of that, but probably not, because I know none of you live in my neighborhood, so you're not affected by it. Lanesville, East Gloucester, West Gloucester, it doesn't affect you. So I'm just asking you to please stop the proposal at 20 Main Street.
Thank you.
Could I ask your name again?
It's Lyanne, Lianne, Palazzola. You can spell it any way you want.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Lyanne. I live in your neighborhood.
Thank you. Next
Tracy
person.
O'Neill.
Okay, next person that would like to speak in public comments.
Should have brought my cane, but I don't think I need it all the time.
Name and address.
My name is Joanne Aiello. That's Aiello. And I'm also talking about the 20 Main Street project. So I'd like to give you something to think about. I know that you will receive this later on, but I want you to think about some of the things that are of concern to me and to my 96-year-old sister who lives in my house as well. According to a recent edition of the Gloucester Daily Times, the Zoning Board of Appeals gave the developer permission to erect a multi-story building that would be 8 inches from the retaining wall of the family home behind it on 33 Middle Street and the mixed-use building at 35 Middle Street. And 2, the board stated that a hearing was held and that there were no objections to the construction and had several letters in support of the project. Number 3, the only thing that is holding up the construction right now is a legal challenge from the people at 35 Middle Street. So considering the above information, I respectfully request responses, not actual responses, but in consideration of these things. Did those who wrote in favor of the project know about the 8-inch allowance? Who among the members of that board would be in favor of the project if they did live at 33 or 35 Middle Street or any of the other abutting homes? We'd like to ask the members of the City Council to answer the same question with a show of hands. I understand that you're not supposed to respond, but I really believe that if you did, your hands would still not be up. Nonetheless, if it did, I'm sure, if I did ask you that question, I'm sure you would think about it a little bit more carefully. As this construction would be 8 inches from a tall retaining wall, did the board take into consideration how the owners could maintain or repair the wall, especially when one factors in the inevitable weakening it would sustain from the vibrations of the construction process? Is 8 inches sufficient or even reasonable? Did the board require the developer to test the structural integrity of the wall? If and when the wall crumbles and impacts the buildings on Middle Street, which members of the zoning board or this council will take responsibility for repairing them? Will the city? Did the members of the board make a concerted effort to speak to the current abutters? Did they mute the abutter who did try to speak against it? Given that this is only one problem among many others, too numerous to mention at this time, does the mayor or anyone in the city think it is advisable to move this construction to move forward? I want to add that I am aware that the planning board received another preliminary subdivision plan for the property at 20 Middle Street, said to be different from the one in question. Yes, okay, and that's it. I just want to make sure that I'm clear that I respectfully request your conscientious consideration of the concerns of the neighbors.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Who else would like to speak in oral communications? Name and address.
Hello, my name is Saltanat Bertikeva. I'm owner of 33 Middle Street, the direct abutter to the proposed 20 Main Street multi-housing development project. I, along with other residents in the downtown area, and you heard 2 of our neighbors, have been speaking up against the 20 Main Street project for weeks now and sent our petition with about 200 signatures opposing this development to you. While this development proposal has not come forward to this City Council's agenda, we are not waiting until it does to talk about it. We want you to be informed about it, and we want you to see and feel the level of public anger about this project, given the absolute lack of transparency and public engagement in its approval process, its horrifically massive scale and appearance, and the negative impact it will have on the abutters in the neighborhood. My husband and I were the absolute last people to learn about the 20 Main Street development this July while being direct abutters after it had already gone through the approval process at ZBA and HTC. We were absolutely not aware about any public hearing, and the entire neighborhood had no clue about this project either. The worry about the impact of this development on the safety of our property and our physical safety has kept us up for many nights. And I think if you were in our situation, you would feel exactly the same way. This project will negatively impact the safety of other buildings nearby. I can assure you that. This proposal cannot move forward in the way that it is being proposed, and we want you to vote against this development when it comes to, on your agenda. Housing for All, a local group that organized several meetings for candidates recently, published a letter in Gloucester Daily Times advocating for the 20 Main Street project a few days ago. The article is so misinformed, it is absolutely appalling. The authors of the letter say that this proposal is being blocked at the 11th hour. Well, really, how is it so? Housing for All is flatly lying about this because the proposal is being blocked by the outstanding lawsuit that has been in place for months by the neighboring condo. And after the neighborhood, including us, the direct abutters, learned about it and gave enough pushback, it only then received the amount of publicity that it got. There are so many problems with the 20 Main Street, like the traffic, parking, sewage, drainage, emergency response times by the first responders, actual safety of nearby buildings and the retaining wall, and the encroachment on the properties of abutters. Main Street is a tinderbox. If there is a fire, if there's any kind of fire, this development will be too close to our property and the fire could spread easily. And that's not implausible. Think of Maui in recent months, the fire that it had. As we head into the election in 2 weeks, I would like to note that we are closely watching all board and city meetings regarding this and all other development proposals, projects in downtown, because we have had enough of being ignored, dismissed, and kept in the dark. We, your constituents, do not owe you, any of our votes. If you want to get reelected, earn them. Listen to us, hear us very carefully and our concerns and our interests. So we would like to, if you, just last one note we would like to make is that we really seek leadership now. We want public engagement and take us seriously as we move forward with this development being shoved down our throats against our public interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in oral communications that is here in Kairos? Seeing none, let's look on Zoom and see who's got a hand raised. Patty Amaral. Madam Clerk. Patty, would you introduce yourself and your address? And you have 3 minutes to talk to our council. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Patty Amaral, 14 Myrtle Square. Thank you. I guess I'm going to talk about the piles at the beach again. I have been talking about this for like 20 years now. I just drove down at my granddaughter and they're still there at Good Harbor in the parking lot. I sent a letter to the new Board of Health director, and what I got back after several correspondence was everything's okay and everything, is, kosher. And I just feel like these piles at our beaches need to be removed and we should be taking the debris off of the beaches. I also would like to have the pile at the DPW yard that's like 40 feet tall at this point with hazardous waste from our streets and everything being taken away. We use that pile to shore up our Babson Reservoir drinking water. And I still find that just crazy because how could we do that? But I was assured from Mike Hill that it was okay. I walked around the DPW yard and he said, all the chemicals are out of it. Everything's fine. We can use it to shore up our drinking water. Okay. But still, let's get rid of that pile. Perhaps we could have the compost pile there. I said that at a meeting recently. I don't know which one. And let's start doing some action here on things that easily can be fixed. I know you probably have to write a grant for that hazardous waste pile at the DPW at this point, but it's only growing larger and we can make something else of it. So let's work together and hopefully we can get this done and not another 20 years because I might not be here to talk. Might not be on the earth. So let's try to get this done. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Patty. Anyone else like to speak to us on Zoom? Seeing none, next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Order of business is the presentation by the Gloucester Racial Justice Team.
We'd like to ask that Nancy Goodman and Mache come up and introduce Caffrey.
Point of
Thank you.
information.
It's so nice to have you both here. And if you would introduce
This one
yourselves
has a
to
hand up
us.
on them.
We're looking forward to this presentation.
Madam Chair, there is someone who has a hand up. I don't know if she missed the opportunity or if she's part of this presentation. I just want to draw your attention to that.
I think Miyozu is here because she's here for the presentation. She's on the Human Rights Commission. Um, Joanne, I have no problem bringing her in. She wants to. Okay, and Tony Borges is on the call as well, and she is the chair of the Human Rights Commission. So we're excited that they're here to watch your presentation, Nancy.
I don't know.
For those members of the public, this is our, I think, fourth hybrid meeting, true hybrid, and we're learning the ropes of both having it live and with people logging in. So that's some of the nuances that we have right now, so. While Joanne gets that ready, would you both introduce yourselves to us?
Sure. My name is Michelle McCaffrey. I co-chair the Gloucester Racial Justice Team with Nancy, and I also sit on the Human Rights Commission. Oh, I live at 7 Castle Hill Road.
Are we being loud enough? I'm just wondering, was that,
Right, yeah, right. in
Okay.
the- Thank you.
does she need to say again or we're good? Oh,
Thank you.
Michelle McCaffrey. I live at 7 Castle Hill Road. I am co-chair of the Gloucester Racial Justice Team, and I also sit on the Human Rights Commission.
my name is Nancy Goodman. I hope you don't kick me out, but I'm actually a resident of Rockport. My entire working life has been in the city of Gloucester, and I have a lot of attachments and affection here. So I serve as co-chair with Michelle on the Gloucester Racial Justice Team. Joanne, yeah, just that one? Perfect. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us tonight. You, the City Council, and are the people who help to mold policy in Gloucester, and we, the Racial Justice Team, want to support you by expanding your understanding of racial justice. We are aware that many of you have learned about racial inequities by reading The Color of Law. This evening, we want to continue that conversation. Go to the next slide, please. Here is a graphic that can bring us and you to mutual understanding of the main problem. Let's take a moment to look at the first image. Using the ability to watch the game, the first frame shows our society's current status, with the cartoon labels reality. In short, some people have tremendous advantages while others can barely make it, and the little one in purple can't even see the game at all. The second frame shows what a lot of people think is the solution: equality. As you can see, equal treatment, giving everyone the same size box, still doesn't allow everyone to watch the game. The third frame gets closer, labeled equity. It shows that by giving each person what they need, back.
It's going by itself. I
Oh,
don't
is it?
know. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. The third frame, labeled equity, shows that by giving each person what they need, each gets to see the game. And finally, there's justice. The fence is removed, and all three fans get to watch the game without additional supports. I think one of the main things this image highlights is that many people feel that equality is good enough, but the cartoon shows that it is not. The goal of the racial justice team, and we hope of the City Council as well, is equity. Let's give everyone the support that they need to be able to enjoy participating fully in our community. Example after example in the color of law shows how minority populations have systematically been excluded from equitable access to housing and education in particular. The racial justice team is doing our best to educate everyone in Gloucester, as there is consensus that it's time to right these wrongs. We like to imagine a day when we will come to achieve justice, completely removing all the barriers.
Just make me, something Michelle said, made me want to acknowledge that in Val's introduction, you already are including a statement about wanting to make sure that people that represent lots of variety of groups, but including racial groups, you're making that commitment for equal treatment.
Human Rights Commission actually helped us write that, so thank you.
Congratulations. Would you, now the next slide, that graph? I just wanted to speak a minute or make this visual image of, this is the current demographics of Gloucester. Obviously still a large majority white population, 89.5%, but we are having a growing population of people of color and immigrants from other countries. We're now at 10.5%, and that number is continuing to grow.
We have someone talking, so if you could silence yourself or go outside, that would be great, because we're having a hard time hearing. Thank you.
Next slide, please. The Gloucester Racial Justice Team was founded in 2020 and works towards a city where everyone who lives, works, and visits here feels like they belong. Our target audience is this white majority residents of the city. Some believe the people of color do not deserve equal treatment, while some believe equity is essential to the meaning of community. Wherever a resident is on the spectrum, both they and the wider community will benefit from ongoing education about race and the ways to dismantle this inequitable stronghold on our society.
So yeah, next slide, please. We wanted to talk to you about a program we offered this past summer called Gloucester Reads, which was an opportunity for anyone in the community to read of the books that we chose, and Michelle's going to bring them around. One is a novel for adults that is called Such a Fun Age, and we chose it because the main character gives the reader a chance to experience what it might be like on a day-to-day basis to live in a Black body. And the books that we chose for young adults that Tony's holding is a graphic novel that was about the time of COVID. It's an amazingly presented book, like 20 minutes to actually read it, but the graphics are fantastic. And then there was a book for young families to read. Let's see. We had 21 local organizations help us in one way or another, either by publicizing the program, helping us financially, or actually hosting a discussion group. And then 18 community members stepped forward to be trained to lead those discussion groups, of which there were 8 that attracted 54 participants. And then Gloucester Stage Company hosted another 50 people at a virtual authors talk with Kylie Reed. We want to extend a thank you to Mayor Verga for attending that virtual authors talk. We asked people for feedback, including the question, what did you learn? And we just have 2 quick quotes. People said, I learned about the subtleties of racism, how easy it is to make assumptions and judgments about other people's experiences. And a second attendee wrote, I need to deeply listen to the experience of Black people and learn something in the process. The racial justice team feels really fortunate to have had such amazing community support and participation in this initiative. And we've actually started talking about whether to have a Gloucester Reads 2024. So stay tuned.
Next slide. While we have your attention, we also want to take this opportunity to ask that you help us with another task. It was initially brought to us in the spring of 2022. City administration asked us to review the current diversity statement, which is currently posted on the website. And we feel it's very important to update the statement due to the changes that have been taking place in our community. Our suggestions for the update have more concrete and actionable wording.
Next one. That is the up one? Oh, it says current. There we go. I was just going to read what we're suggesting. The City of Gloucester is committed to fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workplace and in our interactions with the public who are most impacted and least represented. Gloucester strives for a city culture that fosters a sense of belonging for all. We provide opportunities for everyone to participate equally and fully in their neighborhood and in the city at large. We help develop each employee's capacity to confidently and competently engage within and across different cultures. The city has a zero-tolerance policy for verbal or physical harassment, discriminatory or threatening behavior by any staff member toward another staff member or toward a member of the public. Anyone experiencing such treatment is encouraged to report to the Human Rights Commission at their email address. What we are asking from you is, what are the next steps? Who needs to pass or say what is the acceptable language? And then how does it get on the city's website? Is that something you can answer in this moment, or?
Well, I would say that we could refer staff to a governance meeting and talk about it, and then also get some input from our departments and human resources. So
Okay.
it's something that we're very agreeable to look at, and we
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
you taking the time with that.
Okay, so as a follow-up, would I go to a governance, we would reach out to the governance committee, or is there a step?
Governance committee really is part of the city council governance meeting.
A sub-meeting.
Maybe bringing this back to the Human Rights Commission to kind of
Yeah,
look
I mean,
at
I
it?
think that the appropriate route would be for the mayor's office to refer to the Human Rights Commission with a recommendation, then to us to adopt as a part of our procedure.
Okay, so mayor to Human Rights Commission and back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the time.
Next slide, please. Working and learning together is the only way that meaningful change can be accomplished within our community, and we are committed to doing our part to move the needle. We want to thank you for your time and end with this cartoon. We all walk the path of life, and we think it's important to recognize that there are some of us that obstacles have been placed in our path that are out of our control. The goal is to be mindful and to do our best to remove the ones that are within our control. And if you don't have any further questions for us or for the group, thank you very much for.
This is
letting us present.
fascinating. I'd like to open it up for any questions from city councilors to either Nancy or Michelle. Anyone like to say anything or ask some questions? Councilor Grow.
How would anyone who is interested in being involved with the racial justice team get involved with the racial justice team?
Great question. We have a Facebook group that you can go and find us and ask to join. And you can also email us at gloucesterracialjusticeteam@gmail.com.
Just for clarification, the racial justice team is separate from the Human Rights Commission?
Yes, this is a fully community-led organization and group. All volunteer, yes.
It's great. Would you introduce any other members that are here?
Oh, yes, of course. We
great.
have Gail and Jim Seavey here that are also part of our group. And
Thank
as you
you.
did mention, we do have a couple of people who have dialed in. I think Tony is here, who also sits as part of the Gloucester Racial Justice team. Yep, Donna's online. Thank you, Donna.
Tony Borges, we already introduced.
Any additional questions for us? All right, thank you so much.
Oh, wait, thank you so much. Oh, wait, hold on. Counselor Nolan would like to say something.
I don't want to hold you up after a great presentation. Gloucester's always been a very accepting city with a lot of different walks of life and generations from other countries. And in years of recent, it's been a little bit tougher with some people being angry. And what you guys are doing is definitely 100% awesome. We need to continue with the way that we treat people, and everybody is equal. And thank you for all your hard work.
I'd like to add to what Council Nolan just said. One of the books that has really inspired me is the book Gloucester Encounters. And it's a 400th book, and it's written by 37 wonderful authors, including Councilor Gross. And one of the nice things about it is that almost every single article by these 37 authors in Gloucester reflects back to our beginnings and the types of immigration that we had here and the types of acceptance. And it's really quite a moving 400th experience. So if you haven't bought it, haven't read it, I would strongly urge you to, because it is just second to none, and it just moves me, every single article. So we're very blessed. Even Patty Amaral is in that as well, who is speaking tonight. And oh, of course, how many of you have done an article in Gloucester? Raise your hand. Okay. Awesome. It is a moving book, and I totally recommend it. It's part of the 400th, and you learn so much about our culture and why we're such a great place to live. Anyone else like to say anything? Tony Gross.
I would just like to say it's so important for you guys to remind us of basic privilege, as well as the previous people at Oral Communication. We need to be reminded that things are not always as they are for us, and that we need to be aware of that. And just thank you for keeping that front and center for us.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. And I think that especially when you're litigating policies and discussing things, you have to think about the people who have not. And I think if you are keeping them at the forefront of your mind, you're going to be able to make better laws, better systems, better processes that really help everyone.
Great, thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Council Worthley.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. I hope you felt welcomed here and always feel welcome. If there are suggestions that you have specifically about how this council or future councils can be more welcoming, please share those with us. And also, as we discuss zoning changes, the transit-oriented district, I think it'd be great to have your voice heard there. I'd love to refer to you regularly to help us vet some of these things, because not only the people show up matter, everybody matters. And I hope that you feel welcome here. But if there are at points or times you can help us, please do.
We
Thank
have
you.
felt very welcome, and we are able and willing to jump in and give another ear or perspective wherever you let us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy and Mache and Human Rights Commission and the Racial Justice Team, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
An update from the Community Development Director, Dave Fields, regarding the Comprehensive Plan Phase 2 public engagement.
We are delighted to have our Director of Community Development here, David Fields, and he is going to enlighten us on what is ahead of us with the comprehensive plan. So Dave, you have the floor, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me this evening. Good to see you all. As was mentioned, I'm David Fields, the Community Development Director, here tonight for an informational update to tell you about where we've been with this plan, where we are now, and then where we're going to go in the future. So as you can see up on the screen or perhaps in front of you, Phase 1 has been completed by our consultant team, city staff, as well as numerous volunteers, which was really an existing condition survey of where we have been over the last 20 years since the last plan. And then where we are today in terms of benchmarking those statistics quantitatively for the next phase ahead. So we're rolling into Phase 2, which is really the public engagement phase. Really, that's where the qualitative input from the public will come from. We're really looking to get the word out. Part of the reason I'm here for this evening is to actually plug what we're doing. Hopefully we can engage you all and help get the word out as well. We have a brand new website that has just launched. It has all of our community tools on it, things like Meeting in a Box, our community survey, our crowd map, as well as any other tools that we have out there currently. It has our most up-to-date information so far. So we're looking forward to working with you, looking forward to working on the plan. I can run through the website very quickly if you give me one moment. So in order to get to the website for those watching at home, it's right under the residents tab. You can scroll down right over here on the left. It's comprehensive plan. Takes you right to the new website. It's all updated. It's all live. It can be found as well on the planning board page as well as the community development page. So really, we do need your help in getting the word out. We're happy to engage anyone who wants to discuss, and we're looking forward to the next phase.
Great, so easy. Thank you. Any questions, counselors? Counselor Grow?
David, thanks for coming in for this. I got to ask the obvious question. The comprehensive plan is running most of next year. The MBTA TOD overlay district needs to be finalized and approved if we're going to be in compliance by the end of December 2024. How are we going to simultaneously work on both projects at the same time? Because as you probably can guess, the MBTA TOD discussion is going to be lively. And we're going to have public hearings and public meetings and public outreach and communication from the community on that at the same time that you're doing the cluster comprehensive plan. And I know that they're supposed to be somehow aligned, but at the same time, they're two beasts in the same cage. And we're going to have to try to figure out how to work out how we're going to get that done in the time that we need to do. So I leave it with you.
Sure, absolutely. You ask the easy ones, right? So what we're planning on is front loading this conversation as much as we can with conversations around housing. That being said, completely aware of the zoning timeline. Really what we hope is that all of this public engagement that we're doing now really helps inform what the future of the city will look like, particularly with respect to downtown and with the zoning in mind. So it doesn't mean that because we're doing the plan necessarily that we can't start having the discussion perhaps early next summer, throughout the summer in preparation for the fall and going into December. Also, we have applied for technical assistance through the state to have a parallel yet quasi-separate track to specifically discuss the zoning that's before us as mandated by the state. So hopefully we're successful with that grant. We're hoping to get some designers on board if we can to show some visual representations of what the future of the city may look like realistically.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, counselors? Councilor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you, David Fields, for presenting. Can you go back to the first slide? Joanne?
If I
No?
can.
Okay. Well, what I understood was that you're going to have meetings with the public from October of 2023 to February of 2024. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yeah, we're kicking it off in October. We're going to run the public engagement through mid-January.
Okay.
So at that point, we're hoping to wrap up, combine all of the qualitative information we have into an analysis portion to roll into our vision and goal setting, which is phase 3.
Okay. So have you taken into consideration that October is just about over and the holidays are all through December? So the general public is going to be preoccupied. I mean, October's over for all intents and purposes. So that gives us November and December. And you said in mid-January, you're going to stop talking to the public?
So we're certainly not going to stop talking to the public at all. I mean, phase 3 will be discussions with the public as well. What we're actually hoping is for a lot of these tools, they're better run in groups of small groups with people you know, with other residents, with maybe people that you don't know, engage somebody that you haven't spoken with before. But actually the holidays might be a great time for people to start having these discussions while they're together, generate some ideas and then move forward. But again, phase 3 is also a public engagement phase in terms of visioning and goal setting. So we're not stopping public engagement, it's just transitioning phases.
Hey, can you add that into your phase 3 verbiage?
Sure, yeah, I mean, it does
So
say
that the
now,
public knows, because otherwise they're gonna say, oh my God, it's all over with, I can't talk now, and they won't even try.
sure, understood.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, counselors? Council Worthley.
Yes, first, thank you very much for coming to us tonight and giving us an update. Appreciate that. I share Councilor Grove's concern, given the timing and the challenge of our zoning process will take whatever it takes, right? And we don't want to be in a situation where in December of 2024, we're saying we have to vote for X without having reviewed it in whatever meaningful way we need to because of a deadline. And to start that early enough, it would probably have to start before the comprehensive plan is over. The last plan, it was initiated in 1999 and it was called Plan 2000. And then we had to change it to call it Plan 2001 because it took us about 18 months to finish it. But partly, and times are different, we didn't have the same access to technology, but we had 58 public meetings over the course of a year and a half. And they were neighborhood meetings and they were very robust and all-encompassing. And I know that there's a challenge to be able to do that, but I think it's also critical that we do. So it's possible that your plan, this plan, our plan is, sorry, I didn't mean to say your plan, is going to take longer than just next year. And I think, I don't want to put words in Councilor Grove's mouth. I think what we're saying is we might need some other specific, potentially paid for technical assistance to manage that process. And it can run concurrently. They're not in opposition to one another, but they can't, they're not, the timing is, in my opinion, not going to line up. And I'd hate to be in a situation where we're November, December of next year, we vote for something that's it complies, but it isn't necessarily, it's not compatible with what people in Gloucester need and want and deserve. So, and I don't mean to say that's one way or another how it ends up coming out, but we need that help. And I wouldn't want to burden the comprehensive plan and try to rush that. So I guess I'm trying to say, good luck on the plan. Let us know how we can help, but also can you take the message back to the administration that the next council will need some effort that's going to not necessarily coincide with the master plan. Thank you.
Councilor Memard had his
Yes.
hand raised.
Thank you again, David. I think it's clear that we need to roll up our sleeves and dig into this and get going. And the election itself coming up on November 7th is a good opportunity. I have citizens who are concerned about the 20 Main Street development that we've just been hearing about, that are prompted by that to want to get together now and use your tools in the box in a small community meeting to try and generate and share some of their concerns. So that we need to step up, I think, all of us, and get this ball rolling. And now that you and your consultants have designed and released these tools for us, now is our time to go to work and engage our constituents as best we can and get them involved in giving you and the rest of the city feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
David, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the creativity of tools in a box? I mean,
Sure.
tell me, visualize what your planning team is thinking.
Sure.
Because that will help us figure out how we might be able to fit in as well.
Yeah, so our meeting in a box tool, it's really it's a brief community survey, but it's also a way to engage from a facilitation standpoint with smaller groups. So whoever's facilitating, it could be one person, it could be multiple people. It's really just a way to get ideas and feedback from the public and the residents and whoever you're meeting with. There's multiple sections laid out, so you don't have to do the entire meeting in the box, the whole component of it. You can just pick and choose, say you really want to talk about housing, there's a housing section, you can focus in on that. There's several questions that prompt you for discussion. So it's really helping somebody who may not be versed in facilitation lead a discussion to get robust feedback. It's really just a tool to help you have those conversations, whoever is using them. I do want to plug, sorry, we are at several tabling events. I just came from our very well-attended energy fair this evening, plugging the comprehensive plan. So we'll be out and about in the community as well. So I'm asking you for assistance, but we'll also be doing our best on our side too.
So is nothing out of bounds in terms of the types of venues that you're visualizing?
No, I mean, as long as you stay safe, wherever you want to do them is fair game. If it's at the kitchen table, that's wonderful. If it's at the senior center, that's great as well. If there's some way we can help facilitate by finding a location, let us know. We're happy to do that.
And are you envisioning kind of a facilitator's guide or a train the trainer for ward counselors or counselors that might want to have some of these sessions with their constituents?
Yeah, absolutely. So the guide is pretty good in itself for the meeting in a box. I think, anybody who's been to a public meeting before can probably look at that and get a good handle on what it is that they need to do. That being said, there was a presentation last week with the planning board where the consultant did run through very much in detail everything that there is to do. We have that as a video clip that we're going to be posting on the website as well. So if you have any questions about it, it's short. You don't have to watch the entirety of it. You can fast forward right to the meeting in the box segment. They run through the crowd map as well as the community survey. But if you're looking specifically for that, you can watch that video. And then we're available as well. If anybody really has detailed questions and you're having anxiety and you can't get your head wrapped around it, please just reach out. We're happy to help.
And I have a final question, and then we're going to go to Tony, but I typically don't ask so many. My final question is, where can people find the data from that initial kickoff that we had? Because that was just a very collaborative meeting with a lot of heart, and I'd love to just guide people to where they can find the summary of that exciting kickoff day.
Sure. Yeah. So on the website, there is an entire existing conditions report that I had mentioned previously. So there are links up there to the data that was collected that day, as well as the demographic data that was provided previously. So it's all up there. We'll keep adding to it as things roll in. It's a living webpage, living document.
Great. Council Gross.
Yeah, David, I'm looking at the meeting in the box thing on the website here, and you talk about activities, and something that struck me is the lack of data to help form so that there's a baseline. It's like, who lives in Gloucester? It's one of the questions that you have. And then who lives here? What different types of housing are available? The common people sitting in the kitchen table with their neighbors aren't going to necessarily have that information. What kinds of jobs are available? Everybody will have, their anecdotal and what they know, but we won't have, the exact data. Is there going to be something that's going to be able to give us the real time data that you guys have of what's currently here?
Sure. So it is all public. As I mentioned, there's the existing conditions report on the page. It's pretty digestible. I've seen reports before, particularly from the US Census, that are not digestible and not easy to read. What the consultants provided is pretty good. Certainly plug that. It's on the website. It's easily available if anyone wants to look at it. But I think that section on meeting in the box, in any of those other sections, we're really looking for more of a qualitative approach. So it's asking you more of, what do you see in Gloucester as a participant in that meeting? And less what the numbers say, because we have the numbers from phase one. We're looking for phase two, really just feedback from the public on what their Gloucester is to them. What do they think the identity is, and where do they want it to go? If that makes sense.
Yep, and I see right here, you have, you can watch the forum presentation right on this website. And all right, I'll expand my search. And if I have more questions, I'll be sure to reach out to the mayor's office to see what kind of answers we can get.
Thank you. Any further questions, counselors, to David? Seeing none, thank you so much for your hard work on this, and we're looking forward to our continued participation and getting the public engaged. So thank you.
All right, I appreciate your
David.
support. Thanks.
Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is the consent agenda.
Councilors, would anyone like to remove anything from tonight's consent agenda? Council Grow.
You could remove information only number 1, please.
Anyone else? Council O'Neill.
The mayor's report number 2, memorandum from senior project manager, CPC administrator, and approval of minutes from previous council.
Which one of that? There's
Number
number
one,
one.
sorry, yep,
So the city council meeting of October 10th.
yes.
Okay. Any further removals, Counselor? Anyone like to move to approve the consent agenda as?
Council Gilman, I'd like to just mimic Counselor O'Neill on number 2.
Okay, so yeah, we can all join in on that, sure. So back to the motion. I'd like to ask that
So
some.
moved.
Okay,
Second.
Counselor Grow and seconded by Counselor Memard. We don't have to do a roll call vote because we are all here. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. So now let's go back to the first item is a statement of apology from Gloucester Councilor Grow regarding comments made at the September 26, 2023 City Council meeting. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And if the council will indulge me, I'd like to read this as per our redefined rules of the consent agenda by grace, that we can actually debate issues that are on the consent agenda. I'm particularly humbled tonight in light of the racial justice presentation and the members of the Human Rights Commission that are on the call, and the fact that I'm on the Human Rights Commission, but I feel incumbent to read this, and hope that you'll indulge me. This is a statement of apology. With respect to our rules of conduct, our non-discrimination statement, and with respect to the fact that I consider myself to be one who tries to be aware of overt or implied bigotry and racism and call it out when I hear it, I need to publicly apologize for something I said at the September 26th City Council meeting. I would like to acknowledge and apologize for my use of a phrase that is offensive to our Indigenous communities. At the time, I didn't even register that I had used the phrase, which of course is a big part of the problem. And I'm grateful for the fact that a resident at our last meeting referenced it in her comments during oral communications. For me personally, it's a point of shame that I carelessly, thoughtlessly incorporated it into my argument, especially at a time when we were making great efforts to more properly acknowledge the relevance, importance, and history of the Indigenous people. My actions serve to remind me that there are many offensive phrases and words that are ingrained in our everyday conversation without much thought as to their origin or to their impact on the communities they malign. As a member of the Human Rights Commission and as someone who would like to think he should know better, I feel incumbent upon me to publicly accept responsibility for my words and to sincerely apologize for using the phrase and for any offense it may have caused. I apologize and endeavor to increase my own awareness and do better in the future.
Thank you, Councilor Grow. Would anyone like to move to approve that information only?
Moved.
So moved by Council Memard, second by Council Worthley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Counselor. So now we'll go up to the top, memorandum from Senior Project Manager, CPC Administrator regarding recommendations for Community Preservation Committee Round 14 Fiscal 23 funds, and that is to refer that to B and F. So you started, Counselor O'Neill, so on the referral to B and F.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring it to the public's attention. First of all, I'd like to know, where can I find the applications for these
Okay,
grants?
so this afternoon, we sent an email out to counselors letting you know that all of the applications based on the letter that we got this morning are now posted on the CPC page for 2023. And that's something new. They haven't done that in the past, but based on the fact that they made a commitment, Matt Lumberg would like to honor that based on the message we got. So we are good for that. It's already there. Thank you.
Okay, and I would like to bring it to the public's attention. I have, gives me pause, I guess I should say. Number 10, that the CPA is recommending that they give funds to Bigelow Real Estate LLC in the amount of $100,000 for apartments at 50 rear Maplewood Ave this is a developer, and I don't understand how the city is giving $100,000 to a developer when we can't pay our teachers a living wage. I
So-
have issues with other items on this CPA. I just do. It's Manship Artist Residence. I don't need, there's no, I looked in the summary, I couldn't find an address for Manship Artist Residence. I don't even know what that is. I've been told what it is, but I've never seen it. I've never been there. And I can't imagine that the majority of the city residents know and have benefited from the Manship Artist Residence Studio. I just can't believe that's true. And I don't know what the Beauport Chimney number 4, Beauport Chimney Preservation is. And I understand this needs to go to BNF, but I want the public to know before it goes to BNF, because a lot of people don't attend Budget and Finance Committee meetings, me included. And it's going to come back to the city council. So I think people need to be aware that there's $891,469 of your tax money being spent on pet projects.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Grow.
I can't speak to exactly the reasoning behind what the application was for the Maplewood Avenue project, but that is a 40B project of which 25% of the units are going to be deed restricted affordable at 60% AMI.
I understand that.
Let me finish, please. One of the specific goals of the CPA was to provide funding for affordable housing. So this is going directly towards the creation of, I believe, 7 affordable units that are going to be at 60% AMI, which frankly I wasn't particularly enamored with the project itself, but at 60%, it truly is affordable, and that's my understanding of what the grant was for.
Okay, can I rebut that?
Well,
I'm not arguing it.
Yeah.
go ahead, but we are bringing this, we're referring this to
Right,
BNF.
but-
That is the purpose of the consent
Right.
agenda. Right, exactly.
Right,
So-
but the whole idea of taking something off the consent agenda is to discuss it, right? Okay, so this is a controversial site at best. Some say it's wetlands. I grew up there. It was known as Nossa's Swamp. So there's big problems with that area. So for the city to give a developer $100,000, whether it's 40B or whether it isn't, is questionable to me. So, and these other things are questionable to me as well. So I just want people to know.
I think everyone knows that they can now look on the CPC website and get all of the applications in depth. So it's also, a lot of this information is in the packet for tonight's meeting. I think Counselor O'Hara had his hand raised, and then Counselor Gross.
Thank you. No, my question was answered pertaining to the applications that they are on the website, but possibly, Councilor Gilman, we could make the budget and finance when this comes before them a meeting of the whole, because I'm sure there'll be ample questions. Thank you.
I have no problem with that. Counselor Memard? Of course. Okay, so we will make that as a committee of the whole so we can all participate. Okay, thank you. Counselor Grow, your turn. Gross.
Gross.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I just want to make something clear, also because it was stated for the public interest that this money cannot be spent anywhere else. This money is raised as the voters voted for CPA funding, 1% addition over the 2.5%. The voters voted for this, and it is dedicated money for the purposes of the CPA, which I don't want to get wrong and state now, but it's housing, it's historic preservation, space and recreation.
Clean
So
water.
it has only those. So I wanted the public to be aware that this is not money that is in the general budget to be used for anything other than these purposes.
So
And that the state, in addition to the tax levy, that we've agreed to the 1%, the state also provides a match. Last year it was about 40%. This year it's around 20% in addition to the locally raised funds. It's a complicated subject, but it's a fascinating.
And housing for local families, I believe, is the way it was written on the ballot. And it was last on the ballot as the question was written on the ballot. It was open spaces, et cetera, because I don't want to misquote it either. But housing for local families was last, and I believe that's how it was written. Just so.
The formula is dedicated by the state, is dictated by law. We don't have we can't, it's not a home rule petition or anything. It's by law, by state law.
What was on what we voted for on the ballot? So that doesn't matter what we voted for. What the citizens voted for holds no water. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Is there a motion to approve the referral of the memorandum from Senior Project Manager, CPC Administrator regarding recommendations, for Community Preservation Committee round 14th, fiscal 23 funds, refer to BNF. Moved by
Second.
Councilor Gross, seconded by Councilor Nolan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The next thing that Councilor O'Neill has asked to remove from the consent agenda is the City Council meeting of October 10th, 2023. You have the floor.
Yes, I noticed that my statement that I read was not written. Attorney Favaza's statement was written. Many of the statements from the people in the audience were written. I submitted a written copy. By the way, you people who spoke tonight, if you don't give a report or a hard copy to the city clerk, it holds no water. It didn't happen. So you have to give them a written copy of what you said. So I gave you a written copy of what I said, and it was not put into the minutes of the meeting. I understand it was a 3-minute speech or whatever, but Joe Favaz's was there and other people's was there, and it was just referred to as Tracy O'Neill said something, basically. So I have a problem with that. I'm guessing that many other councilors do not, but I cannot approve the minutes of the meeting because what I said is not in there.
Madam Clerk?
This is no reflection on the clerk's office. I'm sure you're doing what you were
But
told.
What it says, it's just, it says in the minutes, Ms. O'Neill read a prepared statement on file in the city clerk's office addressed to Mayor Verga,
Right,
the administration to the city council.
right, but
We
everybody
don't
else,
put the full statement in the minutes.
but there wasn't even a summary. I mean, you summarized what Joel Favaza said and whatnot. It's just, I can't approve it, that's all. I'm not surprised that this has happened, but that's okay.
I don't have a problem of us putting that statement in. So, I mean,
Amend the
so I
minutes.
will move to amend the minutes to allow Council O'Neill's statement to be included. And I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
On the motion,
Go ahead,
discussion on the motion, thanks.
Sure.
So are we approving the minutes with the expectation that her statement will be included, or do we wait and put this off to 2 weeks so that the statement's included?
Oh, We're gonna
Okay.
put it in.
Okay,
That's my motion.
that makes sense.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in opposition? Seeing none? Thank you. So I think we just voted that.
We need to move the
So
approval of
we
the
move,
minutes.
we now need to approve the minutes of October 10th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved
As-
by
as
Counselor
amended.
Grow.
As amended.
As amended. Yeah, we
Okay.
already did that. Counselor Grow, and then seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of October 19th.
Council Memard, the floor is yours.
From last Thursday. So we had 4 items before us at Budget and Finance. The first was memorandum from our police chief. requesting acceptance of a fiscal year 2023 bulletproof vest grant in the amount of $19,776.72. And committee recommendation on a motion by myself, Councilor Memhard, seconded by Councilor Worthley. Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council accept under Mass General Law, Section 4453A, a U.S. Department of Justice fiscal year 2023 Bulletproof Vest Program grant passed through the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security in the amount of $19,776.72 for the purpose of purchasing 19 ballistic vests for the Gloucester Police Department officers. The federal portion of the grant is $9,888.36, and the state portion is the same $9,888.36. The grant period is through August 31st, 2025, and there is no local match for this grant, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's made by Council Memard, seconded by Council Worthley. Is there a discussion or a narrative, Council Memard?
Very briefly, we discussed with the chief improvements that are made to bulletproof vests. Their weight is somewhat less than it used to have been. They do have a expiration date, just like soup in a jar. And after a period of time, they need to be retired and replaced. And this grant allows for the police department to replace 19 of these bulletproof ballistic vests.
Further discussion, councilors? From Council Grow.
I just wanted to, as a point of interest, I asked Kenny Costa if he could let me know how much we get in the city in grants every year. And I just wanted to point this out tonight because I think it's really important for people to understand the importance that these grants play in receiving the kinds of goods and services that we need to run the city properly. And this last year, we received over $20 million in grants. Now, that's all grants to the city and the schools and CDGB. But over the last 5 years, he says we've averaged over $14 million in grants. And a lot of these are grants that are applied for by department heads to augment their own budgets. And I think it's really important to recognize, one, that they can be very complicated to get through and to apply for, but how invaluable they are to the general operation of the city. And just sort of take a moment of gratitude for all the department heads who take the time to research these grants in the grant department, because without that, if we needed these things, they'd be coming out of the general fund budget, or we'd be doing without. So.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to let everyone know that Jill Cahill, our CAO, has been on the call, and I didn't introduce her sooner. So I just want you to know that. Any other discussion on this matter? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business, Council Memard.
Yes, thank you. The second item from Budget and Finance Committee from last week is a memorandum from our Assistant DPW Director, Mark Hall, requesting acceptance of calendar year fiscal 2023 recycling dividends grant in the amount of $16,800. And on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the city accept under Mass General Law 4453A, a state recycling dividends program grant under the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for $16,800 for the purpose of enhancing the City of Gloucester's waste reduction programs. The grant has no match, and if unused, funds may be rolled over to future fiscal years. And I so move.
Second.
Motion's made by Council Memard, seconded by Council Worthley. Is there a narrative, Councilor Memard?
We apparently go through a review process with the state in terms of what recycling initiatives we have to offer here in the city of Gloucester. Councilor Worthley asked several good questions at our meeting with Mike Hale with Mark Cole regarding what we qualify for and how we could increase these funds. And our understanding from the DPW folks is that we're pretty much maxed out and what opportunities are available to us. Others might include having a full-time transfer station at the DPW yard, which would not be practical in terms of people dropping things off and staffing it. I don't know if Councilor Worthley wants to add anything to that. But
I'd be happy to. So we get this grant every year based on a certain performance, and the performance is really how our citizens are recycling, and it's obviously a tonnage that's removed from the waste stream. I had asked if there's things that this council could do to help promote that. And he did say that the staff is pretty maxed out on whatever efforts they're working on right now, but he said he'd get back to us with a list of other ways that we might be able to help spread the word and through our networks. And so I'm happy to support the grant without that list, but he did promise at some point he'll come forward with some ideas. So I'm encouraged.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, counselors? Seeing none, roll call, no roll call vote tonight. Yay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business. Council
The
Memard.
the third item was a particularly interesting one, and we want to thank our, what do we call it? The assessor's office. Thank you. I'm trying to, I don't think of all those numbers down in the basement that you guys are involved with. The assessor's office here in the department in Gloucester has taken some initiatives and researched some opportunities for us. And they've made a recommendation to us to adopt several exemptions that are available to the city for personal real estate tax exemptions. And I'll read the recommendation, which was on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Gross. Budget and Finance Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council accept the changes of the property owner's requirements in Mass General Law 59, Section 5, Clause 37C, 41A, and 41C. And these changes are summarized as follows. A, Clause 41C, senior exemption. Number 1, minimum age of a property owner is reduced from 70 to 65 to qualify for the senior exemption. Number 2, the exemption amount is increased from $500 to $1,000. Number 3, gross receipts limits are increased for a single property owner, from $13,000 to $20,000, and for married owners from $15,000 to $30,000. Number 4, whole real estate limit, net of property value, increased for a single owner from $28,000 to $40,000, and for married owners from $30,000 to $55,000. Number 5, whole estate exclusion is increased by 2 units in addition to the unit occupied by the applicant. Number of living units on a property now being 3. Clause B, Clause 37, legally blind exemption. Number 1, adopt Clause 37C, which increases the exemption amount for those legally blind from $437.50 to $500. And C, Clause 41A, tax deferral. Number 1, gross receipts limit increased from $30,000 to the income limit established by General Law C 62, Section 6K for the circuit breaker state income tax credit for single seniors who are not heads of households, currently $64,000 and subject to annual adjustment. And I so move. And
second.
And members of the department are here to answer any questions that councilors might have. And again, I appreciate the initiative that they've taken to bring this forward as an option for us to offer our taxpayers.
Council, I'd like to amend the motion by stating that it's 37A, not 37C. Any
So moved.
moved and seconded, no roll call vote, just simple vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'd like, before we vote and start discussing this, I'd love it if Nancy would come up, our wonderful assessor, and Tim Good as well, just to give us some of your thoughts on this before we get into our discussion on the motion.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. I am Nancy Pappas, Principal Assessor. I also have Tim Good, one of the assessors, with me this evening. At the directive of the mayor and in conjunction with the CFO, we were asked to look at the local options available for personal exemptions to determine what would be financially feasible for the city to adopt and what would provide a greater benefit to the eligible taxpayers. Currently, the city has a variety of personal exemptions available. The most common are for seniors, surviving spouse, veterans, and legally blind. There are approximately 300 exemptions granted annually, And in fiscal year 2023, there was 182 veterans exemptions granted, 101 senior or surviving spouse, 11 legally blind, and 3 tax deferrals. The senior exemptions have income and asset requirements in most cases. There's also one senior exemption that only has an asset requirements, and those determine whether taxpayers are eligible. Veterans exemptions do not have income or asset requirements, but in most cases, they require a 10%, a minimum of a 10% service-related disability or some other condition such as a Purple Heart. The reason that we started looking at these is that basically for the 41C, which is the larger senior exemption, few taxpayers actually apply or qualify because the current requirements are very stringent and they've been in place for a very long time. In fact, prior to when I started working here in 1996, I believe they have been unchanged since that date. And only 29 were granted in fiscal 23. So Councilor Memhart outlined the changes, and we're hoping that by reducing the age requirement, this opens up more applicants having the ability to apply. They would also receive a much greater benefit with the increase from $500 annually to $1,000. And the income levels and asset levels, though still on the low side, at least will hopefully encourage more people to apply and maybe allow for more people to be eligible. The whole estate exclusion, basically now if a taxpayer owns a 2-family home, they only are able to receive the exemption for the portion that they occupy. So if it is the $500 exemption, they're only getting $250 of that. So that whole exclusion change would basically allow homeowners that are eligible that own either a 2 or 3 family, they could still do so and receive the total exemption amount. So our goal was basically to increase the number of seniors that would qualify for the 41C and also increase their benefit. We also believe that taxpayers that are currently seniors and receiving a 17D, which is a lesser senior exemption, it offers $175 a year. It does not have income requirements, so more people sometimes can qualify for that. There is an asset threshold of $40,000, but with these new proposed changes, it's possible that they could move into that category and possibly receive a much greater benefit. Veterans also that do have the requirements met in terms of eligibility for the 41C, they could maybe receive a greater benefit by applying for the 41C as opposed to the clause 22. You know, they have to meet the age income requirements, obviously, but it'll give them another option to maybe receive a greater benefit. Madonna Fleming in our office, I have to say, she did a lot of research, as did Tim, in terms of researching the exemptions, and she also does a lot of work with the applicants, and her goal is basically to help people determine which exemption will give them the greatest benefit. The proposed change to the legally blind was really the only thing we had available to us, and it's going from the clause 37 to the clause 37A, which increases the amount that the taxpayer is granted a little bit. And the tax deferral, which is not really a credit toward the tax, but deferring payment to a later date, that income requirement was relatively low at $30,000. So the change is to proposing that we use the limit established by the Department of Revenue for circuit breaker state income tax credit, and that gets adjusted annually. It's currently $64,000. These proposed changes would not result in any additional reimbursement from the state. We're currently reimbursed for a portion that we grant in terms of the exemption amounts. And in terms of the veterans exemptions, we also explored that somewhat, and Tim Good did call one of the legal advisors at the Department of Revenue, so he can tell you a little bit more about that.
Welcome, Tim. Thank you for being here. I know you both had a long day, so thank you.
I'm Tim Good from the Assessor's Office. We did contact the gentleman at the Department of Local Services Law Office to find out what options we had under the law to increase the benefits to veterans. Unfortunately, we were told there are none that's specific to the clause for 22. What he did point out was that there are a number of bills floating around at various stages at the state level, providing for increases to the benefit afforded to veterans. No guarantee that any of those will pass. They said it's a little harder for those because they usually come with a reimbursement. So when they have to come up with the money for them, it adds an extra layer of complexity in terms of getting those bills passed. I believe the administration is also reaching out to the local representatives to put some support behind that if they can. They did mention there is one option. It's called a clause 5C.5, I believe. But what that does is you have to increase the amount of benefit across all exemptions offered. It can be up to 100%. It comes with a lot of complications. It's far more difficult to administer. There's a limit to the savings you can have, so it gets phased in. You can at any point get that added benefit, lowering your tax burden below what it is now. That itself can create some inequities with people who have similar situations but getting different benefits. And it has to be tracked each year to change based on what they qualify for, what their taxes were. And one of the big things is nothing under that 5C.5 gets any additional reimbursement from the state. That's about it.
Thank you. So counselors, we've heard from, you're going to continue, Nancy?
No, I'm all set. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. And I just wanted to also mention that John Dunn is on the call as well as Kenny Costa. Council Gross.
Nancy, if you could answer this, on clause 41, number 4, that net property value does not include the home. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's assets outside of their domicile.
Questions, counselors? Council Grow.
I asked you a couple of these questions earlier, but I thought it might be relevant to have the general information to folks. First off, we already have all of these exemptions in place, correct? These are exemptions that we already honor and do. There's just changes to them.
That's correct.
And then secondly, we have an overlaid amount in the budget that we budget for sort of dealing with the loss of this income, correct?
That is also correct. And that's typically, it's been about 400,000 a year for the last few years at any rate.
We get about 150,000 of that from the state.
We do get reimbursements. Last year was approximately 154,000 and the amount that was exempted was approximately 220,000.
And finally, very quickly, how would people go about getting this exemption?
This exemption is an annual application, which is true of all the exemptions. If the proposed changes are adopted, we plan to visit the senior center, have kind of some outreach there, as well as the Veterans Center. We will also update the website with all the information. We are very proactive in terms of helping the applicants, especially the seniors. It's very difficult for them sometimes, so our staff that's in the front office, Madonna Fleming and Marianne Peters, they assist them actually filling out the applications if necessary. So we do a really good job of trying to help people make it as easy as possible, even though, you know, it's difficult sometimes for them to have to keep coming every year to do it. But hopefully with a greater benefit, it'll certainly make it worthwhile.
Last question, why do you keep raising my taxes every year?
Any further comments or questions? Council Worthy and Council Nolan.
Sure, thank you. Ms. Pappas doesn't raise your taxes, she raises your property value. Thank you. First, thank you to the mayor for bringing this to us. And I think Jill Cahill was at the meeting. John Dunn has worked on this. Your office is probably the second busiest office in the entire city. I think the clerk's office is probably the busiest. And the fact that you're doing that every day and then working on this too, I have a lot of respect for your office, what you've done. Just to be clear, what this is doing is making it easier for people who qualify. And it's usually the people who are most vulnerable and are needs basis. It's making it so that there's a greater amount of money available to people in those different qualifications. You said that you'll do outreach. I'm just, if you could answer with the senior center, is that, or Council on Aging, is that correct?
Yes,
And then also with the Veterans Office?
yes.
And then I think I've raised the budget and finance. Is there a way to create sort of a pamphlet that you can have at the collector's office that says, and I don't know if the answer was yes or maybe, but frequently asked questions, or you may qualify, or something like that?
We do have that type of information in our office, and applications and what have you are all available on the website with some descriptive information as well. I believe that John Dunn was more inclined to have his people send them down to us to answer questions,
That's right. I
just
think-
because they don't really know the eligibility requirements, and it may just cause issues in terms of mixed information. So we will,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we'll have, encourage anyone to have them contact us directly, and we'll certainly help.
I think he said he didn't want his staff giving financial advice to people at the counter. It's always so busy. But I think the message is also that you'll help them filling out those applications. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
You referenced the overlay funds. If they're not all used, they can be rolled over to future years. Is that correct?
The overlay, the way that it's held in terms of accounting, and I'm sure Kenny could do this much more gracefully than me. It used to be in individual fiscal years, and it's now basically one whole fund that encompasses all fiscal years. So monies that aren't spent stay in that account unless they're declared surplus. The monies that are in there basically are for the purpose of covering abatements and exemptions, and also any liability that we might have for appellate tax board cases. So we do hold money in reserve for those types of things until we have cleared out any cases in terms of them being either withdrawn, settled, or if we have to issue any abatements, we have to hold that money aside, as well as outstanding receivables that haven't been collected.
Okay, so last year we spent about 250,000, or we covered $250,000 in exemptions and abatements, although we budgeted about 400,000. With this increase, these changes, it could be that more people will be applying and will be giving more abatements. But if correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have about $1.2 million in that account left over. So this actually won't impact services because it won't cost coming out, at least this next year, will not come out of the general fund. It'll come out of that overlay. Unless I get my numbers way off, could you correct that?
We will normally, even in current years, without the changes, we have typically only spent about 225 of the 400. That's including abatements as well. So there is going to be a surplus for that, most likely. We're not certain how much this is going to change, how much annually is needed to cover the exemptions. But because of that balance, which Kenny had indicated at the BNF meeting, we should be fine. And CFO Dunn did say that if we see that the numbers are something where we have to adjust what we're budgeting in future for the overlay, then we would consider an adjustment to that if need be.
Thank you. You've answered all my questions.
Thank you. Council Nolan.
Thank you. Council Worthley did ask us some questions that I was going to, bring up. But basically it comes down to the simple fact that I want to thank the administration in your office for working so hard for this. This is great for our seniors and veterans, and it's important to try to find some more money to help them out. And I'd like to say that this one issue here is something I think is worth tightening up our belts for. Thank you.
Council Gross.
So just a couple of things. I think also that John Dunn at BNF said that there's a possibility of including something in the tax bills. And also Nancy, would you be adverse to having we have the Fourth Estate here today, have them call you for, any kind of coverage on this story? That would be great too.
Okay. Certainly.
So I have two quick questions. If anybody else hasn't gone, jump ahead of me. Okay, thank you. So my first question is, when will this be effective?
As long as it's voted before the mailing of the actual tax bills for fiscal '24, which is the end of December, it would be effective for fiscal '24. So basically now, and applications can be submitted up until April 1st of '24. That's the deadline. April 1st is always the deadline after the actual bill is mailed. So there's plenty of time to get the word out and get our visits into the senior center and veterans, and for people to come in and inquire and still put in an application. They have until next April 1st.
Great. And my second, it's kind of an opportunity to kind of piggyback on what Council Worthy was talking about. I envision that we could have one document on the website that gives seniors, people trying to age in place, all of the opportunities with links to where they're staged right now on the website, because I think that that would be really helpful for them. You know, in just people in general that might need these types of discounts, you know, heating oil with actions, you know, just different, the things that we offer in the city, but the things that our 501c3s also help us allow people to age in place. So it's kind of a project, but it's just something that I think would be really helpful. Maybe we could help work on that at the Council on Aging or something, but it just seems like we have an opportunity here. Even for younger couples, we have like first-time mortgages assistance with, you know, that's on our website. That's another opportunity, but anything that we can do to help people be successful with the rising costs of houses and the lack of houses, and you know, how can we make people feel like we do have some programs and make sure that they're clear on how they can find them. So just a brainstorm. We don't have to discuss it right now, but I'm just kind of visualizing that that would be really helpful. To us.
It's certainly a conversation we can have where it should land in terms of where it should sit, whether closer to Council on Aging, and then maybe they have some of our information available as well, would be a conversation we probably want to have with administration as well, I would imagine.
Great, awesome. Thank you.
Counselor.
Council Memard.
I just want everybody to understand and appreciate the fact that the auditors, that the assessor's office, Tim and Nancy, working with our auditor, Kenny Costa, and our treasurer, John Dunn, and the administration. This is a relatively, it's complicated, and there are a lot of moving pieces, but I think it reflects how well the fiscal management of the city of Gloucester is overseen and taken care of, and that the fact that we have these funds and rebates available to qualifying taxpayers is a wonderful thing to be able to offer, but it doesn't compromise in any way the fiscal integrity and strength of the city. It's been planned for and provided for, and I think that's a tribute to everybody in City Hall. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion, councilors? Seeing none, there was a motion that was made. It was seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you so much, assessors. Thank you, John Dunn, still on the call, and also Kenny Costa. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business. Yes, BNF, Council Memard.
One more thing. We're here to accept donations on behalf of Elise Sinagra, our Director of Elder Services. And she's requesting that the council accept donations totaling $1,057.90. And on a committee recommendation, on a motion by myself, seconded by Councilor Worthley, Budget and Finance voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council accept various cash donations under Mass General Law 4453A to support the Council on Aging in the amount of $1,057.90 from the following residents and business partners within our community. And those include Grace Lane, James Howard, Jerry Favaloro, Marilyn Grant, Bernice Blitz, Constance Condon, Frederick Cowan, Barry McKay, Elizabeth Barron, Bruce Davis, for a total of $1,057.90. And with gratitude to them, I so move.
Second.
Motion's made by Councilor Memard. I believe I heard Councilor Worthley.
Gross.
Was it Gross?
I don't know.
Oh, Council Gross, it's, the second is from you, so thank you very much. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
I just want to mention that the ordinance and administration did not meet on October 16th, and neither did the Planning and Development Standing Committee. They did not meet on October 18th. So the next order of business is the scheduled public hearing 2023-036 to amend Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Article 6, Traffic Schedules, Section 22-270, Parking Prohibited at All Times, and Section 22-291, Towaway Zones by adding Washington Street westerly side from its intersection with Centennial Avenue in a northerly direction for a distance of 110 feet, and this public hearing was continued from the October 10th City Council meeting.
Like to open the public hearing. The gavel is in there. We can't unlock it tonight, so that's just my make-believe. Open the public hearing, reopen the public hearing. And we should ask if there's any further presentation. And Council Worthy, do you want to take the lead on this?
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. I think where we left off, we were in council discussion. So if we could just pick up from that point, I'd appreciate that. So again, if you're on Centennial Ave and you're looking to the left, we're looking at the 2 parking spaces on Washington Street. And there was a misunderstanding on the numbers, well, maybe not misunderstanding, misinterpretation. So the Traffic Commission had recommended that we make it so there's no parking for 110 feet from the intersection of Centennial back in a northerly direction toward the Rotary. And I think the question was raised, like that's a lot more than just 2 spaces. So I did some measurements. The first 19 spaces, the first 19 feet are no parking, and there's a sign right there on the pole. Then there's a crosswalk in that, and right next to the crosswalk is the first space. If we remove those 2 spaces, then there are 2 driveways and a fire hydrant. And so what the Traffic Commission recommended was 110 feet from the intersection Centennial, include the existing 19 feet, plus the 2 spaces, plus the driveways and the fire hydrant. For purposes of what are we legislating, I did some measurements today. 19 plus the 2 spaces adds up to 55 feet. Obviously, you can't block a driveway or a second driveway or a hydrant. So my recommendation would be that we amend the motion to say 55 feet instead of the 110, because I mean, it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. If we say no parking here to corner at the 55 feet point on Washington Street, it would include the 2 driveways and the fire hydrant, or we could put a sign close to the fire hydrant and say no parking here to corner, and that'd be the 110 feet. So I'm okay with either. We just need to pick one and then make a vote. So I'd like to throw that out there for discussion.
Just a quick question, Council Worthy. What did you use to measure the 55 or 110 feet?
I used is it Stanley tape measure? I didn't use I think we used Council Grove's gate as the measurement at the site visit.
Yeah.
To come up with our best guess for estimating, but 55 feet with a tape measure.
So I think this is the public hearing right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
So
discussion is part of the hearing, right?
No, it's not.
Yes.
So we had. Joanne? I thought you said that the public hearing is going to be continued.
Continue the vote.
Oh. Okay, then I'm sorry I even opened the public hearing. So just cancel that, okay.
Not being present at this meeting, I think the Councilor Harris should finish this part of it because I wasn't here for the first part and step away from the dais because I included on the information given at the beginning of the public hearing, and now you're into council comments. And so I think that without any objection, that would be the right thing to do at this time.
If I could clarify the rule on that, though, if you've watched the minutes, watched the meeting from 2 weeks ago, and we the chair, and you are on the ONA that made the recommendation for this, you would be eligible to vote if you hadn't watched that minute. This is as far as state law goes. If you hadn't watched the meeting, you're 100% right that you'd say only heard part of the meeting, you can't vote in the second part. But if you watched the meeting or read the minutes, then you are allowed to be part of the public hearing, or part of the vote because you heard the public hearing.
I did watch the meeting and read the minutes. It's up to the council if they feel comfortable with me being involved in this. I have no problem stepping away.
I have no
That
problem.
objection?
No
can we-
problem.
Yeah, I have no
you saying.
objection. So,
Thank you.
so you're back. Thank you. All right, so, so we're in discussion now, and I think the first thing that we should probably do is, can you reread the committee report?
The Ordinance and Administration Committee voted by roll call, 0 in favor, 3 opposed, Nolan, Majota, and Hara, to recommend that the City Council amend GCO Chapter 22, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Article 6, Traffic Schedules, Section 22-270, parking prohibited at all times, and Section 22-291, tollway zones by adding Washington Street, westerly side from its intersection with Centennial Avenue in a northerly direction for a distance of 110 feet. I so move.
Second.
Motion's made by Counsel Nolan, seconded by Counsel O'Hara. Is there a narrative, Counsel Nolan?
I guess the narrative would be that there was 5 ordinances that were looking to be changed in the intersection of Centennial and Washington and Grove Street. Some had been put through already, some have been removed, and this would be the last one that's out there for council vote. So we're at discussion at this point, and we'll make a decision at discussion, and if there is an amendment to 55 feet, that can be taken up during this discussion, and then we can have our vote.
Okay, thank you. Counsel Worthy. on
Madam
the
Chair, I'd
amendment.
like to make that amendment. We amend the motion to reduce it to 55 feet instead of the 110 feet. And I so move.
The amendment is made by Counsel Worthy, seconded by Counsel Nolan. Is there discussion on the amendment to the main motion?
Just a question, would the 55 feet still eliminate those 2 parking spots?
Yes.
Okay, on the amendment, roll call. All those in favor, say aye.
Do we have a discussion
Oh,
on the amendment?
okay, on the discussion on the amendment. Thank you, Counselor.
So the sign is at the 20 feet or 19 feet, 20 feet, if, depending upon where the radius is. And that's the state law, it's 20 feet from corner. Okay. There's a crosswalk in there that's probably, it's 10 feet from a crosswalk. And you want to go an additional 35 feet from that.
Correct.
Why are we not just going an additional 20 feet from that? Which would eliminate, basically 1 parking space. Is it because then you can't fit another car between that space and the driveway?
So I measured from the corner of Centennial back to the next driveway. If we were to, if we were to go to a lesser number, I mean, are you suggesting we are trying to limit, are you suggesting we eliminate 1 and not 2 spaces? Is that what you're trying to get to? I'm just trying to understand your question.
Yes, 1 additional space. And I think that, what I've observed coming out of there is that,
you know, vehicles are a lot higher today. And them parked at that no parking sign now, you can't see without pulling out into Washington Street. And I think if you removed one more, if you push that back one more space, then you could. So that's just my, I'm just wondering why you came up with.
Sure, I'm sorry. I think I understand what you're saying. If we eliminate one, that's an improvement in my opinion, and I'd support that. If you eliminate two, you're actually opening up from there, those two spaces and the two driveways and the fire hydrants. You're actually visually opening up a lot more space. So eliminating that second spot essentially opens up the 110 feet so you can see better. I'm okay with moving one. It's better than not moving anything.
If I may, Madam President.
Go ahead, Counselor.
But the 110 feet was actually to facilitate the right-hand turn. So I don't think it had anything to do with the parking spaces in line of sight. So I think we should eliminate that out of the equation completely. In my mind, that's the way I feel that should be. So I'm just trying to come up with, you know, the least damage with the most benefit is how I'm trying to figure it here on that.
So first, I think we're on the same page and where the goal is to make it easier to pull out a Centennial so you can see better. The 110 wasn't necessarily tied to whether there's a second lane or not. It included just the measurement all the way through the end of where the hydrant is. It tied into, if we're going to do a lane, we need that space. But when I measured the 55, I measured the next 55, and it got me to about 10 feet beyond the fire hydrant. So that's where the 110 started as far as spacing. So I would suggest if we want to make a motion for less than 55, so I just have one spot eliminated, we could vote on that and see how that goes, and then decide if we want to go the whole 55 feet to eliminate the two spaces. I think that would probably be the legislative way to, or rules way to address this issue.
I was at the site visit, but I don't remember. Isn't there a 20-foot to the corner right now? So already you have 20 feet. Is that to the corner?
It's 19, it's supposed to be 20, but it's 19.
So removing another parking spot, what does that really do to the visibility when you're there? A lot. Because of the big trucks and stuff like that? Yeah. Counselor.
Yeah, I think I see where Councilor Gross is going with this and the concern of removing just a little bit more of the sightline impediment. But there's a real question of enforceability, I think, on this. I mean, certainly the police can enforce it if we put it on the books. But knowing that George's is always really busy, realistically, I don't think you're going to see any enforcement on that unless it's specifically called on. I'd be much more inclined to lose one spot and see how that goes, because I think if you try to take those two spots, you're going to park there anyway. And it's, I mean, not that that's not a reason to do something, but realistically, again, I've said this before, legislating something that is effectively not manageable may make us feel like we've done something, but it's not actually going to change what is happening on the ground. And I think if we just removed a single space beyond that 20, and what is that, 20 feet?
20 in addition to the 19.
So you're looking at 39 feet or 40 feet. I think you're more likely to have an effective, you can have one space there and then we have the sign and then we'll go from there.
Be 40 feet from the corner.
40 feet
so
from the
that
corner.
would be inclusive of the 20 that we already have.
Correct.
There.
So I
It's
think
the
if you-
right length of an SUV, Councilor Nolan, correct?
It'd be 42 feet because the 20 feet from the intersection or 19 as he measured, depending on, like Tony Gross had said, the curvature of the curve. A full-size legal parking spot in the city of Gloucester is recognized as 22 feet. So the parking spots are 22 feet, 20 from the corner is 42 feet.
Yeah, I just don't think that
But then
two
we have a
spaces-
crosswalk involved.
Right. But I just don't think two spaces, taking away both spaces is going to be practical. more
Right,
effective.
I agree. So is someone going to amend the
May I-
motion right now? So we
Yes,
can
could
move
I
on?
ask for a friendly amendment to my motion? And that all it takes is the seconder to agree. Instead of 55 feet, I'd like to change that to 42 feet from its intersection with Centennial and Washington.
Isn't there a crosswalk involved there?
Yep, the crosswalk's.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the crosswalk is at the about 6-foot mark from the curb, and then there's 20 feet that you wouldn't be parking anyway. So my motion is to change the 55 to 42 feet.
From the corner.
Yes.
Are you changing the 110?
110 is going to.
All right,
42.
so, so this friendly thing, why don't we just say that this is the amendment, that this is
Okay,
an
so
amendment to the main motion? Okay, so,
Because
on
we
the
have to dispose
amendment,
of the
go
first
ahead,
one.
Council Gross.
We're not talking parking spaces when we're talking no parking. So it doesn't have to be 42, it could be 40, correct? Yeah, so I think going with 40 would be less, would be easier for everything. So that's my only.
I just want
point there.
people to be able to see better. So 40 is the number.
That's what makes sense.
So I'll make a very friendly, extra friendly motion
So
to.
let's go. So the amendment, to the main motion is,
If I could look at this real quickly. Sorry. Adding Washington Street westerly side from its intersection with Centennial Ave in a northerly direction for a distance of 40 feet. And I so move.
motion's made by Council Worthley, seconded by Council Nolan. On any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, the ayes have it. Now back to the main motion. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, the ayes have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Thank you to the Traffic Commission, to DPW Director, and every member and ward counselor who helped me with some really good questions on this at the site visit, and all the members of the council who attended the site visit. I think. In Georges. What's that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing 51 to amend Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, Street Sidewalks and Other Public Places, Article 1 in general, Section 21-1, prerequisites to private ways by deleting the current Section 21-1 and adding a new Section 21-1, acceptance of private ways.
I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for anybody that would like to speak in favor or opposition to come on up and talk to us. Right now, and I see no hands raised, so. Yep. Would you, thank you for being here, staying so late. If you would state your name and address, and we'd love to hear.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilors, my name is Paul Manise. I live at 13 Brightside Ave in East Gloucester. And I'd like to speak to the amendments as I understand them. I've looked, and I apologize for perhaps being unprepared and coming late to this discussion. I just learned of it. I understand there's an effort to amend or replace Section 21-1, acceptance of public ways. My review of the amendment, I don't know if folks have it in front of them or not, suggests that the amendment simply makes it much more cumbersome and more difficult to accept a way as public. It keeps Section 21.1 in its entirety and then adds 5 or 6 more criteria. I would urge the council to consider, if their goal is to make it easier to accept public ways, a mere deletion of 4 words in Section 21-1 would simplify the process. I'll read the section. You can read along if you'd like, and then I'll go back to the section that I suggest be deleted.
Just time out for just a second.
Sure.
Administratively, can you put this up on the screen from the template?
That would be great.
That would be really helpful for particularly for those watching at home. Anna's still here. So our general counsel and Jill Cahill are still here if we have questions. I'm not timing you on this, Paul.
Oh, thank you. I intend to be as short as possible, though, I will tell you that.
Okay.
And I'm here, I'll say, because Brightside Ave and Beach Road are sort of the poster child for what I understand to be this amendment.
Okay, we're rolling here.
Oh, there it is. So that's the amendment that you're looking at. The full section of
Cut out and make it a little larger.
the current section 21.1 is the language that's in black. It reads, "No ways shall be accepted as public ways of the city unless the order for acceptance is accompanied by a statement in writing signed by the Director of Public Works, the mayor, and the city auditor, stating that sufficient funds are on hand and will be allocated for placing such way in a safe condition for travel." My recommendation is to simply delete the words Director of Public Works. He is steadfastly against the city accepting any ways. He is, I'll not suggesting this in a derogatory way, but self-interested, because any money dedicated to those new public ways comes out of the DPW budget, which he would rather probably spend on other things. But I don't, that's my impression of it. So I think rather than adding these criteria, simply removing an unelected employee of the city from this requirement places the decision where it should be, with the mayor and the city auditor who works for the city council. And if nobody has any questions, that's my only suggestion at this point.
So this isn't time quite yet for questions, but we will get there shortly in the public hearing. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Yep.
Paul. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anyone else like to speak in favor or in opposition? Could we bring her in, and Linda, if you could introduce yourself and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak for us. I think so. I think it's helpful because we're going to need to discuss this. Linda, you're in. If you could introduce yourself and your address. You're
Yes,
part
can
of
you
the
hear
board.
me? Yes, okay. I
Very
could,
loud.
the last screen was still covering my computer and I couldn't find the mute button. Anyway, this is Linda McCarriston of 16 Quarry Street, and I will confess to not having had the time really to study this. I would like to add something that is, if it hasn't already been included in the conversation. As I said, I live on Quarry Street, and the Klondike Reservoir is reached by Quarry Street, and the fire roads into the woods, which we've been using frequently recently for fires up in that area of the edge of bordering on Dogtown. Um, and I've been told in the past that the city will contribute nothing to, let's say, a road repair that needs, I don't mean potholes, but I mean a repair. The city would contribute nothing under circumstances like that. Which really seems to be kind of almost deliberately provocative to people, given the amount of land on Quarry Street that's owned by the city, and how it isn't simply recreation land or undeveloped land. And it hasn't ever, I've never heard this, but it occurs to me that it might be possible to conceive of, and I know this would be more work, but in circumstances where the city must have access, not simply emergency access in, the case of a problem with a private person, but simply must have access, that some breaking down of the percentages of obligation to the road according to necessity for the road would be more acceptable to people than the idea of a small road with not that many people undertaking work for a huge portion of land that the city must have access to. And so I'm offering that as something, another project which nobody needs, but it seems to me it might be a way to move forward with at least some of these roads that are presently private, that the city absolutely, and the city owns great amounts of property on and absolutely has to have access to. And so I offer that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else like to speak in favor or opposition? Seeing none, is there any correspondence or communications, Madam Clerk?
There is none.
Are there any questions, counselors? Council Worthley.
Yes, thank you. So this is a combination of a number of counselors' additions and amendments and deletions. I just wanted to clarify for the record, I had submitted the deletion of the statement, a statement in writing signed by the Director of Public Works, the Mayor, and the City Auditor, saying that sufficient funds are on hand and will be allocated for placing such way in safe condition of travel. We have the additional language that I recommended, but that was supposed to be deleted, and it's in black, which it's not one of the things that we're adding, but I had put in to delete that language. What's that? So, right, so I have add A, no ways shall be accepted as public ways except, and we want an opinion of the DPW director, the auditor, and the mayor, but not to set money aside because there are no funds that are set aside in a fund for private roads. So adding A should be deleting C, not adding C. We already have, you know what I'm saying? It's basically saying add the language that's already existing, and I'm trying to delete that language and add different language. I didn't convey that very well.
So
The
we
template
scroll
is
down.
In other words, A takes the place of C.
So, Madam Clerk, could you scroll down so we can see the section that Council Worthley added to this?
It's there.
Oh, it's on
It's
top of
C,
the
it's
black
just in
line.
black.
Okay.
So mine says A, adding parentheses A, a written opinion from the mayor and city auditor on the acceptance of the way. If neither mayor nor the city auditor provide an opinion within 90 days of the initiation of the order, the council may proceed with a vote. If a written opinion is submitted, it shall be read into the record. I am. Oh, I think I was pressing a mute button. I apologize. So we see the language that I've added, and then it says to add letter C, but that's the part that I'm replacing. So I think at O&A, we discussed replacing that language. The public hearings said that replacing that language, but for some reason the template is saying adding back in the language that's there. So the question is, can we, as a question of, can we vote do we need to amend the template? I don't even know how that works, but I don't want to be adding in language that I'm trying to delete.
So the template erroneously says adding, and in fact, it should have been deleting. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That motion came out of the order that I submitted to ONA.
All right, so if I may, I know where Council Worthley's going with this, and this did start from a committee of the whole where we had a lot of different ideas and ordinances that we combined into one at the end of 3 meetings, I think, that we had over this. I think it's fair that we can read or ask to amend by removing adding C, a statement in writing. It's something that can be asked to be amended, because I believe that on adding A, a written opinion from the mayor, which we talked about, and we changed from 30 days to 90, supersedes adding C, a statement in writing, what was the original wording in the ordinance that should be replaced, or it's being asked to be replaced by A, adding A, written opinion. So if you want to make a motion to remove adding C, you can make a motion to remove that. But I don't know if you want to make a motion to remove that before or after we actually read it.
Okay, if I were to make a motion, I would just be wanted to change the word adding to deleting. Because that was the intention of the order, and it was exact language I put forward. So the template has the word adding, and I should have caught this before tonight. We can wait till the motion's read to convey that.
Counselor Nolan is looking at the minutes from the March 28th, 2023
Right, and so
meeting.
it is in there, the way it's on our template is correct by the minutes of the meeting.
So those minutes were written by our legal department initially when they proposed the changes. Isn't that how those minutes were pulled?
Right, but these are the actual minutes from the meeting.
Okay.
that will
So
pull
we-
that.
we wouldn't
So
add
we're
language and
still
then-
the same,
Yeah.
same situation where we can add or delete at this point. So that's what we're here for tonight, is to make a decision on that, on any of this.
So I guess we can bring on the conversation, on the discussion. My question was, can we delete that? And the answer is yes, when we get to that point.
Um,
Thank you very much. I just want to, this is literally the sausage is being made here. This is a hodgepodge of all sorts of things. If we take out the DPW director in A, right? So it's a written opinion from the mayor and the city auditor and the acceptance of the way. The assumption is the DPW director is weighing in
Excuse
with
me.
the mayor.
Excuse me. Are we still in public hearing?
We're on questions.
To whom?
I think we were on the amendment. that he
Usually
was-
to the presenter, right?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
We've got
should-
Suzanne Egan
should
on
we
the
still
call,
be
so we
in-
could be asking her,
Yeah, okay, because,
right?
yeah.
So we're starting to deliberate. Right. So I would say, if we have a question, our general counsel is on. You could ask it.
okay. Ms. Egan, if you're on the call.
Point of information, I think that we can ask questions of the counselors who submitted the orders.
Good evening, counselors. Yes, I am on the telephone call.
So the question I have is a clarification. If we accept that we're going to eliminate adding C up in the top part of this order, a statement in writing signed by the Director of Public Works, et cetera, and accept adding A, which is a written opinion from the mayor and the city auditor on the acceptance of the private way. The assumption I'm taking from this is that the DPW director works for the mayor, and the administration would be recommending to the mayor whether or not to sign or accept the opinion on whether or not to accept it. But then we get into the section of adding D, and we have a bunch of little adding sub things. If we get to adding 6, so D6, It says that the road meets the conditions of the requirements is determined by the DPW director as being a road that is in good shape to accept as a public way. So we still have to get we have to get a recommendation from the DPW director before we accept, I'm assuming before we accept the we still have to get the opinion of the DPW director at some point in this, according to the
Exactly.
ordinance.
Right. So I think that the ordinance is, I think what this, and this ordinance was, as Councilor Nolan stated, is this was, and Councilor Worsley, an outgrowth of a number of meetings on a number of different sort of ways to deal with the issue of how private ways can be accepted by the city of Gloucester. And so there's a lot of different, so many different meetings, and what we're trying to do here is with one ordinance is capture everybody's ideas. So there may be, there may remain within this ordinance some repetition, and I think that it's appropriate, as was stated earlier, to have that discussion and make amendments as need be. But you're correct, Councillor Grow, that there is the provision in there is that one of the requirements or one of the pieces of information that should be presented to the council in accepting a public way is that statement from the director of the DPW. So there is two, as the ordinance stands now, there's two requirements for the DP, or there's two methods for which the DPW director can have input into this discussion.
So can I have a follow-up question on that? So the question I guess I would go to then is, if we take a street like Brightside, Mr. Muniz has brought up, which has always been the one I reference in Beach Road. If you have a situation where the road is currently in pretty poor shape, how do we accept that road as public based on all the other criteria, which are it's connector street, which between two public roads, it leads to places of interest, it's highly traveled by the public. I drive on it every day, really slowly, Paul, by the way, very, very, very slowly. How do we move this forward? Because as Mr. Muniz has pointed out, and I think rightfully so, that our DPW director is not in favor of accepting a lot of roads as public because the onus falls on him to repair them if they're not in good shape. And we always have, we don't have the funding that we need to do the repairs we do, but we clearly have to do something. So how do we work this out so that roads like Brightside and other highly traveled connector roads are somehow accepted by the city in a way that is actually practical? Question mark. Suzanne.
So I think one of the important things for to consider in this is the ordinance that before you that you're considering tonight is really a policy decision that the city council is making. So the city council has the authority to accept private ways and to lay out private ways. What this ordinance does is it sets out the procedures that you've all discussed and recommendations from the private road working group that they say should be considered in when the city council does make a decision as to whether a private road should be accepted. And so it's really laying out sort of points of interest or information that the city council and the private road working group and from members of the community have said are important for the city council to consider in making that decision. No, I don't believe there's anything, and I'm saying this now, that there's nothing in the ordinance that says if one of these conditions are not met, then the city council is prohibited from accepting a private way or as a public way. So those 6 criteria that are there that ask for a statement of the DPW, it says that shall be considered by the city council, but it doesn't prohibit the city council from that. But from accepting it as a public way. But I believe that if you go up to the black language there, that's in section C, that requires that statement from the mayor, the city auditor, and the DPW saying that it is in good condition and that there is funding, specific funding available to bring the road into a safe condition, that may in fact prohibit the city because or the city council from accepting a private way in very poor condition as a public way. So I would suggest that it may be, it may be the best course is to actually have the proposed amendment as proposed right now, amended and delete that section that requires that statement. But other than that, if the DPW recommends this road is in horrible condition, in my opinion, it should not be accepted by the city. If the city council determines that they, it's in the best interest in the city to accept it as a public way, they have that, you all have that authority to do that.
Okay, so if I just want to repeat, so I'm sure that if we strike adding C in the adding A category, or the top section, and leave the rest of it alone, then that leaves the discretion to accept or reject the acceptance of the private way to the city council, based on whether or not the mayor, and obviously by whoever is guiding him, and our auditor make their recommendations of whether or not we should accept it. But we can still accept it regardless of what they say. And then the issue on B, which is the 100% of abutting owners, that's really an issue that revolves around the issue of eminent domain and whether or not we can take property and accept it as a public way from the property owner and the abutting property owner. So does that need to remain in effect, that you still have to get 100% of the people on the private way to accept that it's going to be accepted as a public way?
So that is also a policy decision. So I've been conservatively recommending throughout this process that language remain in the ordinance, because in my opinion, as I've explained, there is a risk that the city council would be taking, or the city would be taking, by taking property that people are not offering as a friendly taking, and therefore subject the city to a liability by taking that property by eminent domain. Because as we have discussed many times, private ways that are proposed to be taken for public, the way in and of itself is a lot wider typically than the paved and traveled way. And so once we have that survey of where the way is and the city accepts it, if there's property owned by the abutting property owner that has been developed with stone walls or other landscaping materials, if the city goes and takes that, then there is the potential to have to pay, right? We cannot take without just compensation to the private property owner. And if there's a private property owner that is objecting to his or her property being taken by the city, you're then in the city is going to be subject to some sort of risk of liability to get the property value that's being taken, and then having to compensate that owner for that. And that's why I've been advocating for that, just because most of my opinions are to act very conservatively, not to subject the city to liability, but that's my opinion. But the city council, again, this is a policy decision and can make the policy decisions that it would like to.
I have one last one, but just a quick one, if it's okay. All right, I'm on a roll. I'm doing really well right now, so let me keep it going. Yeah, I do. The size of the road matters, right? So public roads have to be built according to a certain framework by the state regulations. If we do accept a private way that is undersized, are we obligated as the city to make it comply with the state regulations, or is that only for the acceptance of Chapter 90 funding?
I can't speak to whether if that's only for the acceptance of Chapter 90 money, but we have in our Code of Ordinances specific requirements, and I don't have the section in front of me right now, a specific requirement that a way has to have a certain width. But then we do have that exception clause in there that says unless and I don't have it exactly, but unless essentially there's good cause or the city council finds that there's good cause to accept that way as a public way, even though it doesn't meet those width requirements. So we don't have, the city will not have an obligation to expand the width of a road, but keep in mind, once a street is accepted as a public way, then the city takes on all of the risk of liability for that way. So they, that's when the city has that obligation to bring that into a safe condition.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Suzanne, I have a question, and I've thought about this for a long time. So if Brightside Ave is used by 90% non-abutters all the time, every day, as determined by a traffic study to validate that, then why do we need to require that the road be in good or better condition if we decide that it should just be a public road with the city taking the ownership? I know the cost is cost prohibited because we don't have enough Chapter 90, but at the same time, I'm befuddled in terms of why we would ask the abutters to do an extensive betterment on a road that they only use 10% of the time and 90% of the other time everybody else uses it. It just doesn't seem like it's fair to those abutters.
And to point, it's not practical because we have in fact embarked on the betterment project at the golf club with Mike Hale and John Dunn, and the abutters have shown zero traction and interest in filing a betterment petition for Brightside Avenue for the very reason that you just described. So it's a very practical example.
So as much as what's driving our decisions here is that we only get half of the Chapter 90 funding that we need, because the Chapter 90 funding hasn't changed since 2011. It's still $200 million for the whole state. And we had lobbied hard at the MMA, at the budget hearing, for 400, and MMA was supporting 350. And that would allow us to be able to repave our public roads here in Gloucester every 20 years rather than every 40, which would be a huge opportunity for us. I guess my feeling on this is that if there's 2 or 3 roads in the city that are used 90% of the time per a traffic study that could validate that, and it would be pretty simple. You bring your butters out and you say, how many cars does each have? And then you do a traffic study using the electronic system that we have, and you can prove that 90% of the people on this road are non-abutters. So my colleagues are reminding me that I have to ask a question, and they're doing it in a very subtle way. But so my question is, could we put language in that in a case, would we be able to put like an amendment in here that would state that if a private road is used by 90% or more of non-abutters on a daily basis, that the road does not have to be in good condition for the city to take it over as a public way? That's my question.
And once again, the city council has the authority to accept public ways. And this ordinance is really a statement of the policy as to when and what the city council wants to consider in making that determination when a road should be or should be accepted as a public way. So you have that authority to include that in your in this ordinance if you'd like to do that. There's nothing legally that would prevent you from doing that at all.
Okay. Further questions? I think Councilor Grow and then Councilor Gross.
So if,
Oh, and he's sitting forward, so I didn't see you. All right. Okay.
I wasn't trying to block her.
I did not see you. Go ahead.
So we could add a
Is there a question here?
yes.
Thank you.
I'm getting there. Yeah. we could add a question or a category in the adding D section that would potentially say something along the lines of, based on a traffic survey, the non-abutter traffic is X amount. That would be one of the conditions that we could put in there as a reason for accepting. Would that be acceptable then? Question mark.
Yes, so that you absolutely could do that. You could ask for that or require that as part of the information to be presented in your consideration of accepting a public road. And you could include that in the ordinance so that, because as you know, right, ordinance are statements of policy and requirements and rules, and also something that will be applied generally through, presumably for a number of years, presumably decades, right? So it's always good policy to make an ordinance or adopt an ordinance that pertains to generally to all of the considerations that you'll have on this subject, as opposed to just one instance.
Any further questions? Counselor, I had said Counselor Gross and then Counselor O'Neill. And Counselor Nolan, I better write this down.
I mean, an awful lot of this discussion can be done outside of the public hearing. That's my only question here on this, is that we're into really, we can ask Suzanne, but we're not asking the petitioners anything, discussing this amongst ourselves now. So that's my question, is how far are we going on this in the public hearing?
So let's just limit this to questions, and then we will get on to the part where we can discuss it. So Counselor O'Neill,
Okay,
now
thank
you
you.
have to ask a question. You can't start to deliberate like we started to. Go ahead.
I need to go back to adding C. If that adding C is going to be amended to say delete C, would it make sense to delete D6?
No, that's what I just asked.
I know, but I didn't, I just want to go back to that and make sure that that is correct. We would change adding C to deleting C, and then we would delete D6. That's no.
You're asking Suzanne, right?
So,
Sorry,
no,
I
so
was
wait a
on
minute.
mute.
I have another question. I'm sorry. So can I just read D6? That the road meets the conditions of the requirements as determined by the DPW director, that is being a road that is in good shape. Is there a list of requirements that the DPW director has in his office that we can refer to? I mean, it's kind of vague, right? I mean, it's just like, yeah, I think it's good. Nah, that's not a good road. It's vague. It's like, what are the conditions of the requirements that is determined by the DPW director? That should be written down somewhere. If we're gonna put this into law or an ordinance, then and if we're gonna refer to what the DPW says is a condition of the requirements, then there should be some kind of piece of paper somewhere that says.
Your question is?
My question is, what is a condition of the requirements determined by the DPW? What does the DPW director consider a requirement?
Okay, Counselor Marjota.
My question is, could we extend this public hearing because we're mentioning an individual who is not here and potentially could have answers to our questions? So I guess my question is, could we extend this public hearing to have the appropriate people here to answer questions that we have?
I'd like that. Is there a motion to continue?
But excuse me, I'm not signaling him out. I'm just wanting to know if we are hanging our hat on the fact that what he says is golden, then there should be documentation of what he requires? And where is that documentation? I'm not trying to, I'd like to know, what does he require? And if we're gonna make a law out of this, we should know what is required.
I think that was what Councilor Gross just said, that we should continue this, or Councilor Majota too.
But it should be written down somewhere, right?
So the motion is to continue, okay. Can I just make the motion? Because I started to make it. So the
There's a
motion,
question.
oh, we're still back in questions. Go ahead, Councilor O'Hara.
Could I ask a question? Could I ask a question of our constituent, Mr. Muniz?
You don't usually do that, but I don't have a problem. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Thanks.
Go
Be
ahead.
happy to answer
For
any
a question.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Muniz. What is the ultimate goal of you're a resident of Brightside.
Sure.
Um,
I would, only speaking for myself, I'm not authorized to speak on
That's
behalf of
correct.
the residents of Brightside Ave. But I just think that it's patently unfair.
Can you go into the microphone just? so it's-
Patently unfair to ask the abutters of Brightside Ave to pay to resurface the entirety of Brightside Ave in the form of a betterment at this point, if the DPW director deems it not of good condition. And I would just add that the current state of the ordinance only requires safe condition for travel. All right, and we can debate whether it's currently in a state of safe condition for travel, but I would add that if it's not, then the city has an obligation to repair it if it's unsafe, even if it's a private road. That repair may be temporary, but that repair would then put Brightside Ave in a safe condition for travel. So, did I answer your question or?
Council O'Hara?
Yeah, just.
Okay, go
could-
ahead, one more question.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I haven't asked anything,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
maybe I can have a minute. How long have you lived on Brightside?
I moved on Brightside Ave in 1998. I've lived in East Gloucester almost all my life, except for the time I was in the service, United States Navy stationed in San Diego.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to our country, by the way. The condition of Brightside Ave in 1998, and I know that's historic.
It was in excellent condition because before John McCarthy was allowed to place houses on the lot 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, and 80, he had to repave that portion of Brightside Ave, which he did. And the city forced him to do that, forced him to pay a fee for installing a private sewer on Brightside Ave. So I think the ownership of Brightside Ave is in dispute. And what I'd like to do is hand up a copy of a plan approved by the land court because it's registered land that shows the abutters don't own to the middle of Brightside Ave. They own to the edge of Brightside Ave. So this is maybe a different scenario. Can I get that up?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, any further questions?
I
Councilor
haven't
O'Hara,
finished.
go ahead.
Sure. So, thank you. In 1998, the road was in, to use your words, excellent condition?
Yes, all the way to the top to bottom.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And the condition of the road today?
It's in fair condition with respect to that portion of the road that was repaved by John McCarthy, that being the bottom half, essentially from my house, which is about halfway up, down to Bob Gillis's house on the corner. The disrepair, and I think you should take this into account in your thinking, is from Decatur Street east up to Beach Road. It's in terrible shape. And to the argument or suggestion that, it's unfair to have the abutters pay for that, there's one abutter that egresses his house from that portion of Brightside Ave. Now, you can't suggest that that one abutter who lives there just in the summer, not all year round, caused all the wear and tear on Brightside Ave because he couldn't have possibly done it. I would suggest that it was caused, and I'll give you an example. Last Thursday, as I'm working from home, there were 10 trucks loaded with asphalt, each weighing approximately 25 tons, that went by my house to deliver asphalt to pave Highland Street. I can't stop them from doing that, but the wear and tear is going to be on my back, on my neighbor's back. It's just inequitable. And lastly, I'll add, for those that don't know, Brightside Ave provides egress and access to a state highway, 127A. That's not one of your criteria, but perhaps you should consider that.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Any further questions, counselors? So I think we don't want to close the public hearing. So I move that we continue the public hearing to a
Second.
date determined. Yes, that's the way we're supposed to say it, to a date determined. Maybe not the next meeting, but the
November
second,
28th.
November 28th. So I move to continue the public hearing to the November 28th meeting. And that in the meantime, we refer this back to ONA for the purpose of asking Mike Hale to try to address some of these questions about his road conditions and if he has that information, and then talking a little bit more about the specifics of what we brought up today. And I so.
Second.
Oh my God, I've never had 7 seconds before, ever.
President Gilman?
Oh, go ahead.
I
Councilor
believe,
Majota.
I'm happy to bring it back to ONA, but I think there is a lot of also counselors have questions. Is the way we could do that meeting as a whole, because
Do that. We can
this
do that
could
as a-
eliminate
Counselor,
time now that we are doing it. We can really do it during the ONA process.
can we do that?
Fine with that, yep.
All right, so just amend, a friendly amendment, what I just said, as a committee of the whole at ONA. Okay? So
Question on the
I
motion.
think we have a second by all of you, so Council Worthy, I'll give the
Discussion on
second
motion.
to you.
Um,
So on the motion, actually, it's my motion.
Go
so
for it.
may I- Thank you. I think this has been a helpful conversation because this is one of those things that I lie awake at night, and I just think about this and it just bothers me. And so I'm glad that we've had this conversation. I think, Paul, I appreciate you being here because you're in the middle of that. I travel that road all the time and it just seems like a good conversation. So I'm proud of us and I will be accepting this motion. So any further discussion on this? Council Worthy.
If I may, first, it has been a good discussion. I think we're closer than we've been, obviously. Mike Hale was at the last meeting and he said, whatever the council wants to do, he's going to work with. And I don't think he indicated that he had very strong feelings about any of these things. I think he's very clear. He said, this doesn't change anything. He just says it'll make it a little harder for some people to understand how to accept roads. But all of the input, I think that Mr. Muniz, thank you. But I don't know we need another hearing for this. In fact, we've been working on this for 2 years and I think Mike's been at many of these hearings and he's indicated that, I thought he said at the last meeting, he's okay with everything in this. As far as the question about what are his criteria are already written in stone on accepting of a new public road, new construction. It's in the zoning code, actually. And as far as the requirements for accepting conditions of a public road, the key thing we're deleting in this is the title. The title said prerequisites to accepting private ways. Now we've changed it to adding private ways. So this is not making it a requirement. So if the DPW director says nothing, or if he says I'm against it, the council has full authority, as Ms. Egan said, to accept a public road. So I don't know that we need the details of what he may or may not say on a potential road acceptance at some potential time to make a decision tonight. In fact, I think we're close enough with some very minor amendments, I think we can put this to bed because this has been, I have no problem doing more work, but this has been 2 years and probably what, 6 or 7 or 8 ordinance administration committee meetings, city staff coming out, including Mike Hale, legal department, mayor's office. So I don't know that we need another hearing to say we will accept their opinion when we make these decisions down the road.
Okay, on the motion, Counselor Gross?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to disagree with you. If I could, I think we're tailors right now, and we've sewn up the thing. We haven't snipped all the threads, and we haven't trimmed the extra fabric. We're very close, and I think another meeting at ONA to go through and clean up the language that we've obviously missed. We didn't take out C when we should have. I think there is a legitimate discussion on Councilor Gilman's discussion about our idea about roads that are particularly heavily traveled by the public, which isn't a criteria in here. And I think that deserves some discussion as to what would that entail? How would we measure that? What's the framework for that? And I think we leave the public hearing open to the point where we bring back the final resolution of what ONA and the committee of the whole have registered, and we vote. We don't have to advertise a new public hearing. I think we're there. I think you're right. We're there. We're not asking for a whole new, brand new public hearing. We're just basically saying back to ONA, back to City Council, and the vote. And we also give Mike a chance. I mean, he could have been here tonight, granted. And I can anticipate some of his answers. So, but I think it's worth having that final discussion and the final cleanup. So
Great.
I approve it.
Okay, on the motion, everyone's clear? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Paul, for being here. Appreciate it. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next order of business is individual counselors' discussion, including reports by appointed counselors to committees, and it's Counselor Gross's city council statement regarding the 400 celebration.
Okay, and Counselor Gross gets to start off with his request to the mayor. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. Please, excuse me. Can you use your microphone?
You want it?
City Council statement regarding Gloucester 400th plus celebration. 2023 marks 400 years since the English Dorchester Company landed on our shores. Gloucester sits on the ancestral homeland of the Pawtucket people and their neighbors, the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Pennacook, and Wampanoag tribes. Please enjoy the year-long and multiple events throughout 2023, most of which will be free or low cost. Visit gloucester400.org for a list of upcoming events. Like and share the Gloucester 400 Facebook page. To receive major event notifications by email, send a request to info@gloucesterma400.org.
Thank you, Counselor. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Counselor request to the mayor.
Now we're going to go back to Counselor Gross.
Yeah, I don't have any, or, actually, I do have a request to the mayor. Along, I don't know if it's Story Road or, but the access road over the Babson watershed, I guess it's Mass DOT has a chain link fence that runs up to the Gloucester property. And there we have a major drop off. And there tends to be a fair amount of trash that gets thrown over that guardrail and down, and it's extremely difficult, particularly if it's large items like mattresses and stuff that gets thrown over. So I would like request to the mayor to see about putting a 6-foot chain link fence the entire length all the way to the corner, where it dog legs off up towards the old Gloucester Engineering. So that's my request to the mayor. And then also I'd like to just say that the
the Captain Lester S. Wash Post number 3 is doing their Thanksgiving for the veterans. And it will be done at, they need volunteers for almost everything, cooking, delivery. They're doing the cooking at the new open door kitchen. But you should, to volunteer, I just want to tell people, after November 5th, you can call 978-283-7117 anytime and leave a message or email your request to nestorlaw@aol.com. So I just want people to be aware. It's a great thing if you don't have it. Unfortunately, I would do this because my kids don't come home for Thanksgiving, but I'm having knee surgery on the 16th, so I'll be out of commission. But the deadline for meal orders are also, for those people out there, is 12 noon, Monday, November 20th. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Next on the roll call is Council Grow.
Thank you. I don't know if this is Mass DOT or DPW, but, and I don't have the poll numbers, but I'll get them tonight on my way home. There's a couple of light poles on the intersection of Bass and the extension that are flickering, strobing at night, and they're streetlights, and one of them is out. So I will find out the numbers and get those to the mayor's office, but they need to be fixed. And then just a general announcement to the council. I'm sure you all received your invites to the open door ribbon cutting Saturday. It's a pretty awesome event to finally see that the improvements and the expansion and the program facilities that they have been working on for the last couple of years are soon to be done. And just remind you to get your RSVP to them so that you can come and celebrate with them.
It's not this Saturday.
It's November 4th. I apologize.
Yeah, no.
Thank you very much. November 4th. That's it for me.
Thank you. Council Majota.
It would have been.
Yeah, this Saturday is the trick or treat thing at State Shore Park, which is a fun event for everyone who wants to attend. My request to the mayor is on Engle Street. I have a constituent there just questioning the no parking area. So I would just like more information of that to help the constituent. That is Engle Street, and that's it. Thank you.
Next up is Council Memard.
Thank you. The Mount Pleasant paving project is charging ahead, which is very exciting for anybody who lives in the neighborhood. I would just like to commend Rose and Mike and Mike Nocella at Nocella Paving. There have been a couple of instances where people had problems with the grade of the repaving in terms of access to their driveways. They're actually bottoming out because of the sharp incline of a short driveway. And the DPW and Nocella Paving have been extraordinarily responsive and very, very helpful. I do have one matter for the mayor's office where I've been contacted several times now by Marcy Present, who's the Montanino Real Estate Management Company on Parker Street. They have a new tenant. It's called BC Gourmet Foods that's in the old Whole Foods building on Parker Street. We actually provided a TIF incentive to get them to locate there. They're having a serious problem being able to get tractor trailer trucks in and out of the commercial building where Whole Foods used to be because of parking by All Seasons contractors of a whole string of big vehicles on Parker Street in a way that blocks traffic and has resulted in several accidents the police had to be called and vehicles were damaged. And it's becoming an ongoing problem, and I'm just asking for the mayor's help and the appropriate departments within the city to address on-street parking on Parker Street of contractors' vehicles that are blocking traffic flow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nolan.
I don't have any questions. I do want to thank the administration and the mayor's office. As of yesterday, the paving in front of the drainage for the Magnolia Pier was completed. The ramp is installed and the float has been brought out there and tested. And I believe at this time, the actual pier project is closed And I want to thank them for standing behind us and all the counselors that have worked with us, especially Council O'Hara, to get us where we're at. Next on, we're on to our little dinghies and outhauls will be the next fight that we'll be having. Thank you.
Thank you. Council O'Hara.
Thank you. I just want to thank, there was a Gloucester High School teacher who departed last year, and she was a long time science teacher that was very much appreciated by the students. But Carol Cafaso, just want to, that she's recognized. She did a tremendous job. Students looked up to her. She mentored them, just was an amazing teacher, and she'll be missed by the students. Also, when we're coming into the cooler weather, whether we can get sand and salt for the residents to take care of the sidewalks that they're responsible for. With that said, possibly the mayor could invest some of the opera funds in getting mobile scales to weigh vehicles that make deliveries to the DPW. Also want to just the world that we're living in seems to be unsettled, and I want to again thank the men and women of the armed forces that are protecting us 24/7. We continue to deploy strike forces to the Mediterranean Sea and South China Sea to hopefully keep peace. We're living in a different world today. So again, thank you to the men and women. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to request that the mayor give a detailed analysis of opera spending that he has spent and that he will spend, just the full amount, the 23 million. I'd like to know where it's going and where it's gone. I also like to request that the mayor request the Gloucester 400 committee to give a detailed analysis of their spending of all the monies that were granted to them by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Councilor Worthley.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. At Gordon Thomas Park, I should have talked to you first. I apologize. This is still Ward 1, right? Right there. I've had a constituent request a pedestrian crosswalk. I've confirmed with Bruce Tarr and Mike Hale that is actually local jurisdiction. But people are, it's a difficult intersection to cross. So I'd like to just put a request in. I don't even know how to create a pedestrian crosswalk. I helped with the one at the Rotary, but that was with the state many, many years ago. So I want to put that request in. Second is this came up Budget and Finance recently. Can I request that we do some sort of review of lights on at schools at night? Is there a way to shut them off? Is there a way to save more money, keep them on? I don't know, but there should be some review to say, okay, does that make sense that lights are on at night from a budget standpoint? There's a fire hydrant on Witham Street that is covered with brush, and I'll get the exact location, but it's right. It's on the number 22, 23 area, Witham Street. I'm going to ask people to drive a little more carefully. It's getting darker earlier, and I think people are forgetting, not us, but people at home drive probably too quickly. And lastly, in case anyone here didn't know, we have an election in 2 weeks. I think it's awesome that everyone's running. And I know sometimes things get contentious, but I'm just hoping for a peaceful election process over the next couple of weeks. And so I'll be kind. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm last, and I'm going to be short and sweet, hopefully. So happy Halloween. I have treats in my car. I was supposed to bring them in, but I forgot. So, and I've got 3 for Councilor Marjotek for his 3 little devils and children.
They're
Yeah.
angels.
Oh, okay. I want to say thanks to DPW and National Grid because they've done an amazing job cutting back all of our incredible growth right now throughout entire Ward 4. It's been amazing. And it's so necessary. I mean, they're protecting our wires and doing extensive cutbacks, and they've gone from one street to the other. So I think it's commendable and very appreciated, because when we look at the high winds that could be coming up this winter, knowing that there's going to be fewer power outages means a lot to all of us. And the other thing I wanted to say is with Election Day coming on November 7th, Joanne, your team just continues to be standout in everything that you do. And your leadership and your hard work is second to none. I know how hard they work. I see them all the time. The public respects them so much, and just make sure that they know that we all appreciate their great work.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Thank you. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We don't need to do a roll call
Second.
vote. Yeah, we're out of here. Good night, everybody.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good meeting.